joining us today as we begin the August 21st business meeting of the council. This portion of our meeting is for zoning, and so very important to have all of you here. Thank you for your participation today. I want to now welcome each of you who are in the audience, as well as those of you who are watching us on the city's YouTube channel or virtually. And so we now call this meeting to order, and we'll begin with introductions at the dais, and we'll start with our clerk.
Billy Tons, Deputy City Clerk.
Dimple Ashmira, at large.
Good evening, Renee Johnson. I'm honored to represent District 4.
Good evening, Lawana Mayfield, Council at Large.
Liz Babson, Assistant City Manager.
Vi Lyles, Mayor.
Braxton Winston, Mayor Pro Tem.
Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
Good evening, and I hope everyone had a good, happy Pride weekend in District 1. Dante Anderson, District 1 Representative.
If you notice, we have a few the clerk. The attorney. Go ahead. Ms. Hagler-Gray.
Thank you. Senior Assistant Attorney Therese Hagler-Gray. Thank you.
Okay. We do have several council members who are not able to attend this evening, and so we are going to be conducting our business a little bit tighter here as we go through the process. We begin our meeting with an invocation. We do this, and you have a choice if you would like to join in with the council members here, or if you would choose not to. We recognize that not everyone has the same commitment to faith or the type of invocations that we would give. So tonight we're going to have Council Member Ashmira give our invocation, and following that invocation will be the Pledge of Allegiance, again, if you wish to stand with the council. Ms. Ashmira?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 1 week from today, we will see students with backpacks, staff eager to see their classes full, and parents eager to send kids back to school. Well, certainly I cannot wait. I hope we have all had fun time to spend with family and friends, time to relax and rejuvenate, and are ready to get back to our classwork and our agenda for our growing city. As we gather as a community and as leaders, we are grateful for the renewal of the past months and for our safe return to this place. We look forward to the days ahead and for the blessings to come as we prepare kids for a new school year and growth of our city. Amen.
Thank you. Now, if you'll join us in the pledge, if you choose to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin the actual meeting where we will be taking action, I would like to walk through an explanation of the zoning process. Our process begins when applications are submitted to the planning staff for review. There are two types of cases on our agenda. There are decisions and hearings. Decisions on cases for which a public hearing was previously held will have no further comment. The council will discuss and make a determination. Hearings, anyone wishing to speak at a hearing that has not had a chance to sign up with our clerk, please do so now so that you can be able to speak on any item that's going to be a hearing. When we have our hearing, we have the staff presentation, which has no time limit, and then the petitioner and those in favor get 3 minutes combined to present their case unless their opponent signed up to speak or if the staff is in opposition. If that is the case, the petitioner gets 10 minutes, the opponent gets 10 minutes combined, and the petitioner gets a 2-minute rebuttal to the opponents. If no one is opposed or signed up to speak, the staff provides a short presentation, the public hearing is closed, and we move forward to the next agenda item. The petition then goes to the Zoning Committee of the Planning Commission for review and recommendation, and I'd like to ask Douglas Welton, who is the chair of the Zoning Committee, to introduce members of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Douglas Welton, and I am the chairman of the Zoning Committee of the Planning Commission. Allow me to introduce the fellow members of the Zoning Committee who are here with me tonight. Clayton Seeley, Will Russell, Shauna Neely, Rick Winokur, Terry Lansdale, and Rebecca Wilden. The Zoning Committee will meet on Wednesday, September 6th at 5:30 p.m. here at the Government Center. At that meeting, the Zoning Committee will discuss and make recommendations on the petitions that have a public hearing here tonight. The public is welcome to that meeting, but please note this is not a continuation of the public hearing that is being held here tonight. Prior to that meeting, you are welcome to contact us and provide your input. You can find our contact information and information on each one of the petitions on the city's website at charlotteplanning.org. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point, when we send out our agenda, we do have time and have changes in that agenda. And so we have deferrals and withdrawals. I'm going to ask Mr. Patton if he would walk through the list of items that are withdrawn or change.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. We have quite a few decisions to be deferred and two that are withdrawn. The first, item 30 by Nest Home Communities LLC, that's petition 2021-198, requesting a withdrawal of the petition. Item 31, 2022-151 by Raina Properties LLC, also requesting a withdrawal. Then we have item 32, 2022-048, to deferral of the decision to September 18th. Item 33, 2022-099 by Levine Properties. Item 34, 2022-109 by Urban Trends Real Estate. Item 35 by 2022-134 by Musa Muhammad II. Item 36, 2022-147 by South Park Towers. Item 37, 2022-148 by Third and Urban LLC. Item 38, 2022-156 by Graystar Development East. Item 39, 2022-157 by Leon and Jennifer Chisholm. Item 40, 2022-161 by the Pulte Group. 41, 2022-193 by the Brown Group. Item 42, 2022-209 by Coastal Acquisition Entity. Item 43, 2022-219 by Scott Allred. Item 45, 2021-256 by NVR Incorporated. Item 48, 2022-160 by Pendler Development LLC. Item 49, 2022-168 by Nick Armstrong. Item 50, 2022-183 by Beluth South LLC. And item 55, 2023-002 by Jay Cox. All of those are decision items requesting a deferral to the September 18th meeting. We do have several hearings as well. We'll start with item 56 and item 57. That's 2022-076 and 2022-092, both by Sam's Mart, requesting a withdrawal of both of those petitions. Item 58 is 2022-079 by Clearwater Development Partners. Item 59, 2022-218 by Mattamy Homes. Item 60, 2023-034 by Cambridge Properties. Item 65, 2022-011 by Brian Foshi. Item 67, 2023-019, Charlotte Truck Center. That's actually a withdrawal of that petition. And item 73, 2022-096 by Kairoy Residential. All those, with the exception of the three withdrawal requests, are requesting their hearing be deferred to September 18th, 2023. And that's all we have this evening. Thank you.
Move to approve the deferrals and withdrawals.
Just a minute, let me just make sure. You have everything in front of you on your list except item 49, which was added by Mr. Graham as a request for that. And so now with having the material before you.
Here's the challenge.
What?
Since I have everything online, I do not have a list. So I need for Mr. Patton, I think it was something between 60 and 65, something that was withdrawn before 73's deferral.
Say that one more time.
What was withdrawn before number 73?
Before number 73 was item number 67.
67,
Yes.
and that's withdrawn, correct?
Yeah, and I did fail to add one item. Apologies, we just have a fairly lengthy list. It is, let me see what number. Item 54 by Chipotle. It was 2022-212 by Chipotle. They're also requesting a deferral of their decision to September.
So Again, it's the Chipotle, and what petition, item number is it, please, again?
That is petition number 2022-212.
All right. Now, we have a collective of all of the items. Do I have a motion to approve the deferrals and withdrawals? Mr. Driggs?
Second.
We have a second from the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. I believe that's unanimous, Madam Clerk. Is that correct? All right, thank you very much. So the next items that we have on our agenda are the decisions. And this is where we have a consent agenda item with rezoning petitions, items number 3 through 28, may be considered in one motion. I have any requests for an item to be pulled out as an individual decision. Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Clerk, I want to make sure you're ready because it's a couple of them. Number 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, and 6.
I think you said, I'm going to repeat those so that, make sure the clerk and I are on the same page. 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13.
Thank you.
Sounds like we ought to play the lottery tonight, Ms. Mayfield. All right, so now do I have a motion for all of the items? I would guess would start with item, noting those that have been pulled for a separate vote for Ms. Mayfield. Do I have a motion for the remaining consent items?
So moved.
I wanted to also, I believe the attorney wants me to read this, that the consent items, please note these petitions meet the following criteria. No public opposition to the petition at the hearing. The zoning committee recommended approval. There were no changes after the zoning committee's recommendation, and the staff recommends approval. So with that, do we have a motion to approve the items noted on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Ms. Anderson, second by Mr. Graham. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the remaining consent items, please raise your hands. All right, that's unanimous. Ms. Mayfield, did I get you right? Okay. So now we will go through reading each one of these. I believe I have to read as a result of these, Ms. Gray. Hagler-Gray, I'm going to read those that I have. All right, petition 2022-036 by MVP Properties, petition 2022-
Number 3 is the first in
I know,
2021.
but we didn't approve that as a,
So you now have
and
to
the
approve all of them.
consistency of the statement.
Thank
So
you.
we're going to approve these petitions, but adopt the zoning committee's statement of consistency of our own. So we'll start with item 4, petition 2022-36 by MVP Properties. Petition 2022-068 by Barbara Freeman. I believe that's, sorry, we didn't do 5. I'm on my sheet of paper.
4, 3, 4, and 5.
Let me make sure I've got the right list here. It's on the other side of my paper. 3, 4.
Right, I pulled 3, 4, and 5. Okay.
3, 4, 5, 6. Now, okay. May I have a motion to approve the following petitions and adopt the zoning committee statement of consistency as our own? Petition 2022-115 by Urban Trends Real Estate. Petition 2022-199 by Mission Properties. Petition 2022-07 by SLC Development, LLC. Petition 2022-0208 by Summit Avenue Keswick, LLC. Petition 16, petition 2022-2009 by the Keith Corporation. Item 17, petition 2022-214 by Liberty Senior Living. Item 18, petition 2022-217 by Mecklenburg County. Item 19, petition 2222 by Pearl Properties. Item 20, petition 2023-003 by Clark Allen. Petition 21, item 21, petition 2023-004 by Lucky Dog Charlotte Properties. Item 22, petition 2023-005 by Sustainable Resource Properties. Petition Item 23, petition 2023-006 by Old Pineville Investments LLC. Item 24, petition 2023-007 by Laurel Oak Farm. Petition item number 25, petition 2023-010 by the City of Charlotte. Item 26, petition 23-060 by Habitat for Humanity Charlotte. Item 27, petition 2023-072 by Moranis Holdings. And the final one is petition, item 28, petition 2023-075 by the City of Charlotte. So with that, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a second from Ms. Anderson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hands. All right, thank you.
Mayor, I have an opposition for 24 only.
24 only.
All right, please record Ms. Mayfield as item 24, voting in opposition. So we have, how many people here? 6, 7? Okay, so we have enough to pass that with your opposition. All right, thank you. All right, so now, if I am correct, we're going to go back and have a separate vote on those items that Ms. Mayfield requested to be voted on separately.
And I have a question for staff only.
All right, so let's start off with our first one, which is item number 3, petition 2021-2021 by Paulette Canaday for a location of approximately 5 acres located on the west side of Statesville Road, east of Mill Haven. The current zoning is N1B, neighborhood 1B zoning district. Proposed zoning is institutional conditional. The zoning committee voted 7-0 to approve, and the staff recommends approval. Recognize Ms. Mayfield for a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Patton, do you have access to pull this up? We note that this was inconsistent, but there's a statement in here regarding current bike lanes, but when I look at the revised final site plan, I'm trying to understand where these bike lanes are supposed to start and end on this road to justify that being a consideration for this development.
Yeah, let me take a look on that one. Okay, where are they doing bike lanes on that one? Existing? Okay. Bike lanes are existing on Statesville.
I cannot hear you.
Bike lanes are already existing on Statesville Avenue.
So again, for this particular petition, what is noted in here is a direct comment in regards to the bike lanes as part of justification when it's inconsistent. So I'm trying to understand, are they just noting that bike lanes are already there?
The statement in the staff report talks about long-term bicycle parking. So they're going to provide short and long-term bike parking on the site. That's what's noted, not bike lanes, just bicycle parking.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, are there any other questions regarding petition number 3?
Approval.
Second.
Ms. Ajmira?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to highlight this. This petition is to develop a 15,000 square foot facility for special needs youth and adults on vacant land. Certainly something that's very much needed in our community, so I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
All right, Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the petition, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. So the next item is item number 4, petition 2022-036 by MVP Properties, location of approximately 31.9 acres located on the east side of Interstate 485 and the west side of Dutch Creek, north of Rocky River Road. The current zoning is commercial center. The proposed zoning is commercial center site plan amendment. The zoning committee voted 6-1 to approve this petition. Staff recommends approval. Do I have a motion to approve this petition, adopt the statement of consistency by the zoning committee as our own?
So moved.
All right, Ms. Anderson?
Second.
And Ms. Ajmira, second. Any comments or discussions? Hearing none, all in favor of the Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Mr. Patton, unfortunately or fortunately, since I access everything on the iPad to try to reduce on paper, I tried to go back to look at the original petition from 2017-042. It was not available online. I was trying to see what was the original comments from neighborhoods, since this is a request to add additional units into this development, and I guess our process right now isn't that you go back to the community to have conversation to say, okay, we want to add additional units. They have on here that 0 were in attendance to the meeting, but if we have 300 or so square feet that go out with the current development, that potentially wouldn't have even gotten out into the residential neighborhood. So how do you have the information of whether or not, of which these questions I submitted to staff earlier, but trying to figure out what were the conversations and the commitment back in 2017 with this original proposal, since tonight they're asking for additional units in this space?
Reading back through, they talked through just the mix of uses that were being proposed in the 2017 one, which did include a little bit more of the commercial that is now being reduced. I think a big part of that is the movie theater not being part of the project. I don't see any particulars about residential development. It was more, looked like conversation about the, mix of uses, like I said, that were going to be a part of the overall project. But they did talk about some residential uses in the community meeting report, and they did have some residential building interest in the site, but obviously that was about 6 years ago, so the market's changed significantly. They did go back for the community meeting back for the recent petition, which I think they held that on June 1st. 2023, and yet, like you mentioned, they did not have any significant attendance at that one, but it doesn't look like there was too much other than just a discussion of the overall project in 2017. I don't see any specific concerns raised about residential in that community meeting report.
So it will be helpful moving forward as we see that over a 5-6 year period, we're adapting to what's going on, verifying the addresses to ensure that if we have individuals that still live in the area, because once we do a development, we change that 300 feet. So unless the 300 feet starts on the main street and goes out versus starts within a development and then goes out, there's a possibility that residents are not aware, since what they approved back in 2017 was the idea of having entertainment, the movie theater, some other gathering spaces that would have been there. Now we're looking at residential, so it may be helpful as we move forward that we're working with our petitioners, and on our end, we're making sure that we're actually able to outreach to the original residents, if they are still living in the area, to ensure that they have an opportunity to be a part of these conversations.
Certainly, yeah, and I think part of the challenge with this one, some of the buildable areas you'd mentioned has been reduced, so the notice radius from 300 feet is taken from just the subject property being rezoned, so certainly note that as we move forward and see some of these amendments coming in here in the future. Thank you.
Any further discussions or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the item 4, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That a motion was Ms. Mayfield? Yes. All right, that motion passes unanimously. The next item is, you were passing opposition. I'm sorry, I thought your hand went up as the yes, so I will be able to see it the next time.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is item number 5, petition 2022 by 068 by Barbara Freeman. Location is approximately 2 acres located on South Tryon and Wrights Ferry Road in Steel Creek. The current zoning is neighborhood, and the proposed zoning is community activity center. The zoning committee recommends unanimous of 7-0 to approve this petition. Staff recommends approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to support the recommendation of the zoning committee and the staff and adopt the council's, the statement of consistency as the council's own?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Mayfield?
And this will, for Mr. Patton, will be for 5, 10, 11, 12, and 17. And all of these are inconsistent, yet we are saying that for this one in particular, it should be identified as in neighborhood 1. Although inconsistent, we're stating that a community activity center may be good. The challenge I have with the ones moving forward is the fact that they are inconsistent. And staff put a lot of time, council, residents put a lot of time into our living document of the 2040 plan, so it would be helpful that if we're going to have projects coming before us that are inconsistent, if staff also, sooner rather than later, send us some recommended updates to address these inconsistencies, because for me, if it is inconsistent, then we should not be moving forward with it. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the petition, please raise your hand. All right. Mr. Driggs, are you approval? Ms. Ajmira? All right, let's try this again. All in favor of the petition, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Ms. Mayfield, thank you. All right, so the next item is, we just did 5, so we go to 6. Petition 2022-114 by Rohit Patel, approximately 4 acres located on Ridge Road, north of 485. It is in the ETJ. The current zoning is neighborhood 1A. The proposed zoning is multifamily residential. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to adopt the zoning committee and staff recommendation, and the statement of consistency is our own?
So moved.
And second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the petition, please, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. The next item is item 9.
I thought it was 8.
I thought 8 was approved. No, I had it as checked off as 8.
That's one she asked for separate vote.
A separate vote, sorry, that's right. We're on 8. All right.
9 we approved.
All right, 9 we did approve, you're right. All right, so item 8 is petition 2022-119 by Blackburn Communities, approximately 9 acres located on the north side of Johnson Olia Road, out in Prosperity Church. The current zoning is neighborhood 1A. The proposed zoning is urban residential conditional. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to approve this petition as recommended by the staff and the zoning committee for adoption and adopt the consistency statement as our own?
So moved.
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Ms. Mayfield, followed by Ms. Johnson.
I could defer to the district rep. Okay. So for this one, I believe we all received an email on the fact that over the last few years, more than 1,500 units have already been built in this immediate area, and staff as well as planning committee are in support of this. As far as consistency, I would like for us to consider, when we say agent in place as well as maintaining neighborhood continuity, the impacts that we're having when we're moving forward, and if this is really comparable under our new 2040 policy map with creating a true neighborhood feel versus creating a separation where, whether with unintended consequences, the possibility of resegregating our community for those who have access and those who don't, when we think about 10-minute neighborhoods, who may come into the neighborhood, who may not leave out their neighborhood to come into other areas. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Mayfield. I have a couple questions, well, comments. This is on the consent agenda because there was no public opposition. However, as Councilmember Mayfield stated, there was opposition to this petition. So I think we as council or planning staff really need to look at how we are looking at incorporating public comments or public concern into items that are on our consent agenda. Perhaps on our new app that we have for residents, there could be something where residents could send in their opposition. Because just because a person is not speaking publicly on television at a council meeting does not mean their voice should not be heard. As far as this one, the residents' voices were heard. We addressed. I met with the developer. The developer has met with the residents. They've been very responsive. There were at least 2 meetings where the opposition was invited, and I know for certain that no one showed up to the last meeting. So this developer, I do want to address some of the concessions that they've made. As far as the recreation and gathering place, there is a portion of the site that will have open space for the community gathering. They've also removed townhomes to provide additional green space. There's pedestrian and bike connectivity, and there's neighborhood coordination. They've met with Prosperity Village Association and also residents. This petition, I'm honored to say, has affordable housing. This developer offered affordable housing at 6%. 6% of the units to be 80% of the area AMI. There's extension and installation of sewer infrastructure. You've heard me talk about infrastructure, and this petition will improve the infrastructure in the area. They're also coordinating with CATS for bus stops. One of the questions I've asked about this Mallard Creek area and all of the development that we've had, this explosive development, how many bus stops have been added? So I'm happy to support this one. There's also green certification. They're planning the community in accordance with green certification guidelines, EV charging stations, and improved multimodal access. So I will be supporting this petition. It's when we talk about strategic and responsible development that considers infrastructure, this developer has done just that, and I believe that it raises the bar in District 4. So I will be motion to approve the petition.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Ms. Mayfield, thank you. All right, the next item is item number 10, and it is petition 2022-191, Red Cedar Capital Partners, for approximately 4.8 acres on the east side of Plot Road and north of Meadowcroft Court. The current zoning is neighborhood 1A. The proposed zoning is single-family residential conditional. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this item. Do we have a motion to approve the item and to adopt the zoning committee statement of consistency as our own?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Raise your hands. Ms. Mayfield? Any opposition? All right, that is approved with one person in opposition. All right, the next item is item 12, petition 2022-200 by IP2CCP.
Its location of approximately 12 acres on the west side of IBM Drive, north of University City Boulevard. The current zoning is multifamily residential conditional. The proposed zoning is urban residential conditional. The zoning committee voted 6-1 to approve this petition. Staff recommends approval of this petition. Do we have a motion to approve the zoning committee and the staff recommendation and to adopt the statement of consistency as our own?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the petition, please say, raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right, the next item is item 13. Hold on, page 6. Item 13 is petition 2022-205 by D.R. Horton for approximately 21 acres along the east side of Mallet Creek Road, west and north of Morris Estate Drive. The current zoning is neighborhood A1. It is multifamily residential conditional. The proposed zoning is multifamily residential conditional with a site plan amendment. The zoning committee voted unanimously to approve this petition. Staff recommends approval. Do I have a motion to approve the petition and adopt the statement of consistency from the zoning committee as our own?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Mr. Patton. This one is a similar question as far as previous approval and having the ability to go back to community. What we're looking at on here is doing the addition. We have on here that the proposed request details adds up to 20 additional townhome style units in 4 buildings. It was previously approved for 96, and creating the new site total of 116. And we did have 5 that were in attendance, but wanted to make sure that we're staying consistent in our language as far as when we come in and make and request for additional units to be added to a project, and making sure that we have updated numbers. I was able to get some previous information, and it seems like the same numbers as far as possible traffic impact and/or school impact is the same now, and there's no way that, and that's one of the things that Councilmember Johnson has spoke to on more than one occasion, that we're using numbers for multiple projects without showing the increase in those numbers. So it seems as if we're not having accurate numbers presented to us. So it will be helpful if we're able to identify current up-to-date numbers, not numbers that may be 2 to 3, maybe even 5 years past, when we look at impact of school as well as impact of traffic.
So it does look like the trip generation did go up from existing zoning for the 96 townhomes that were initially approved to, went from 700 trips to 835 under the new proposal. So there was an increase of trips per day that were captured as a result of the increase in units on this one.
I do see the trips. I'm really more concerned about what we identified potentially for school impact when we think about buses and traffic concerns. But it would be helpful to just see if the numbers can match up. Thank you.
All right, any further,
Can I add
Ms.
to that?
Johnson?
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Mayfield. You know, you're speaking my language. Didn't we determine a few months ago that we're not actually capturing the school impact? Mr. Patton, the cumulative impact on schools?
We capture those impacts on a petition-by-petition basis.
Okay, because, I mean, like she said, even the petition we're looking at, I believe the one we just passed said that it affected Mallard Creek, the capacity up to 113%. And I believe I have petitions from 2022 where the Mallard Creek capacity numbers were higher than that. And just for the record, we have received a memo from CMS that there's significant concern, at least in District 4, with those capacities. So that is something that I've been talking about, cumulative impact and responsible infrastructure. So I totally support, as you know, Ms. Mayfield, if there's anything that we can do to really begin to take a look at that.
Well, and just to clarify, the petition back in 2020, which I think was 2020-099, had 29 students that would be generated. I think this one with it's actually came out as a reduction of total units over the entire project. So the student generation did go down as a result of this rezoning. They didn't build everything that was initially entitled in 2020, and they increased this request to add 20 more units back, but it's still lower. I think it was originally titled for 130, and now it's 116. So we do have less units and then a less student impact than the initial 2020 approval.
So in 2020, we identified that there would be around 29 as far as there would be an impact. It's difficult to think that the impact would be reduced when that impact was already at an area that was over capacity. So even if we say it's a minor impact, it is an impact that's contributing, added along with the other developments. So adding these additional units, even though they did not go with the full build out, adding these additional units now, that is creating an impact. But I appreciate you going back and reviewing the 2020 recommendations.
Any other comments? Hearing no other comments, you have a motion on the floor. All in favor of approval of this petition, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. That motion carries. Now, we have completed those items from the consent agenda list, and so we'll now go to the remaining decisions that we have for tonight. The first one that I have on my sheet is item number 44. It is a rezoning petition 2023-093 by Charlotte Planning, Design, and Development as a text amendment. The text amendment will make single-family and duplex dwellings legally existing under the office and business legacy zoning districts prior to June 1st, 2023, and translate it to general commercial and office flex campus zoning districts allowed uses with prescribed conditions. The zoning committee recommended unanimously, and the staff recommends approval. Do I have a motion to adopt this text amendment, as well as the statement of
So moved.
consistencies our own, Mr. Driggs? Do I have a second?
Second?
Mr. Graham, is there any discussion on the text amendment? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hands. That's unanimous. Thank you. The next item is item number 45.
And deferred.
That was deferred,
Has
yes.
been deferred. The next item is 46 and 46. I believe we have some changes to the
That's correct.
requests, and so I'm going to ask Mr. Patton to walk through that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2022-060 by Providence Group Capital. They did make some changes. They are requesting a additional zoning designation of TOD-TR now for a portion of the site. So the initial request was for TOD-CC. Now they would like to request TOD-CC as well as TOD-TR for a portion of the site. That is a change the staff does believe warrants additional review by the zoning committee, and we do suggest that it go back to them so they can determine the appropriateness of the change and whether or not they feel that it would need a new public hearing. But it would be up to the zoning committee's discretion at that point, and we do recommend it go back to them.
Motion to send back.
We have a motion and a second to send it back to the zoning committee. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. The next item is item 47. I don't think there are any changes here. This is petition number
2022-152 by Vinroy Reed for approximately 0.8 of an acre located on the south side of Charmack Lane, east of North Wendover Road. The current zoning is neighborhood 1C, Office Flex Campus. The proposed zoning is general business conditional. The zoning committee voted 5-1 to recommend approval of this petition. Staff recommends approval of this petition. I have no changes. Sorry. Okay, we do have a change on this one, so we'll go through this, and we'll have the staff read through the change of item number 47.
Thank you. 2022-152 by Vinroy Reed. They did add a change after the zoning committee's recommendation, which was discussed at the zoning committee meeting as an effort to continue to try to mitigate impacts of the project. They did add a note stating that all music and entertainment will take place in the outdoor seating and dining area of the restaurant on the patio. And that was a condition, again, that we discussed at zoning committee. We do believe it doesn't warrant additional review by that group. We do not believe it needs to go back to them at this time.
Motion to not send back.
Second. I have a motion to not send it back. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of not sending it back to the zoning committee, please raise your hand. All right, that's unanimous. So now we will go to the section where the zoning committee voted 5-1 and the staff recommends approval. And as it stated, all right, do I have a motion to accept the zoning committee statement of consistency and approve this petition?
Motion to adopt and approve.
Second.
All right. We have a motion to approve. Any discussion?
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Ajmira?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to highlight some of the restrictions that were placed as a result of continued negotiations. If you all remember, we deferred this from last month, and I think it has resulted in getting community support. I appreciate Councilmember Molina's leadership. I'll be supporting this, and I appreciate petitioners' willingness to continue to address concerns that were raised.
All right. Is there any further discussion or comment? Hearing none.
Ms. Anderson.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Pettin, I just wanted for us to have a discussion around, the general business conditional of this proposed zoning and what options. I do understand that the petitioner currently is looking to expand a restaurant and have an entertainment aspect of that particular business. But if this zoning is approved, then under B2, what other types of businesses would the petitioner be allowed to open without having to come back before council or speak to community members about?
So it would allow all uses in B2 with the exception of the prohibited uses, which are up on the screen now. I don't know if everybody can see that at the dais, but there's quite a list of prohibited uses that wouldn't be allowed. So essentially, if it's on this list, can't be done on the property. Anything that might be on that list or might be in the use table that's not listed here under permitted uses, then those would be allowed. So, but there is a pretty good restriction on the uses that staff and the petitioner felt wouldn't necessarily serve the general community. So, things like automotive services, jails and prisons, bus and train terminals, some of the uses in B2 that really could become a little more problematic on that site were the ones that were put in as prohibited, and it would just allow those retail and non-residential uses outside of those that, again, are listed. It looks like A through Y, so there's probably about 23 uses listed that are now not permitted on the site, should this be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Pettin. I just wanted to ensure for public record that there have been some significant restrictions on the uses here. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Driggs?
So there were a couple of issues that I think had been kind of addressed to you, and I haven't heard that they've all been resolved, but they're not outstanding issues in the normal sense. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
So I guess I would just like to clarify, unless 6 of us vote against this, if by any chance it doesn't pass tonight, it could come up again, right? In other words, if we didn't have sufficient votes but there wasn't just 6 votes against it, then it could come up again. I just wouldn't want to be in a situation, since I'm not sure where everybody is, where this thing finds itself locked out. So I personally intend to support it. I know what the issues are. I've discussed them with Councilmember Molina, but I believe, based on what we have, that we can proceed, and we will just want to keep an eye on what might happen in the adjacent area. Anyway, thanks, just to clarify that.
All right. Any further comment? All right, hearing no further comment, we have a motion. All in favor of approval of this petition, please raise your hands.
All right.
It's unanimous.
All right,
Thank you
okay.
very much. All right, the next item is item number 48. Again, we have some changes to this one. So,
This one was,
petition 2022,
48 was,
this one was deferred.
oh, that's
Yep, so we can
another
48
change.
and
Pick
49.
that one up next month.
That's Mr. Graham's, I think. All right, let's go. Is 49 deferred?
yes.
And then the next one?
And 50.
And
And
50. Back- All these are really pulling on. So 51, petition 2022-198 by Arden Acquisitions for approximately 2.7 acres east side of South Tryon, West Tyvola. We do have some changes on this one as well, and so the current zoning is neighborhood 1B, and the proposed zoning is urban residential conditional. The zoning committee voted 6-1 to approve. The staff recommends approval, but let's go to the items that have changed before we go into the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The main change after this one, the petitioner did add a site plan note and a conditional note that they would commit to constructing an ADA-compliant bus waiting pad in coordination with CAT, CDOT, and NCDOT along their frontage of South Tryon Street. And that's a minor change we don't believe needs to go back to the zoning committee.
Do we have a motion on changes? Motion to not send back to the committee.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of not sending it back, please raise your hands. Mr. Graham? All right, that passes unanimously. All right, so now we go to the petition. And do we have a vote for approval of this petition with the zoning committee's recommendation and the staff recommendation, and adopting the statement of consistency as the zoning commission as our own? So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hand. Ms. Mayfield? Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right. The next item is item number 52, and this is for petition 2022-202 by Sam's Mart, approximately 1.9 acres located on the east side of Benfield Road and south of Johnson Olia Road. The current zoning is neighborhood 1A. The proposed zoning is community activity center, 1 conditional. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition, and I don't believe that there are any changes recommended as well. So do I have a motion to approve this petition and adopt the statement of consistency from the zoning committee as our own?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Johnson,
Is this on the petition or?
on the petition.
Yes. I just want to say that when we talk about community input, I met with the developer and the developer's representative very early on and referred them to the community. I know this says Sam's Mart, but I just want for the record that gas station is one of the excluded use. So this will not be a gas station. It's owned by Sam's Mart Corporation. So I will be supporting this.
All right,
Motion to approve.
All right, is there any further comment? Hearing none, all in favor of the petition, please raise your hand. All right, thank you very much, that's unanimous. The next item on our agenda is rezoning petition 53-2022-204 by J. Jeet, approximately 5 acres located on the south side of Sunset and the east of Peachtree. The current zoning is neighborhood 1B. The proposed zoning is mixed-use development district conditional. The zoning committee voted and the staff voted to recommend approval of this petition. Is there
So
A
moved.
motion to adopt the statement of consistency as our own, as well as
Just-
their approval.
So
Any,
Just to note on this one, if you do want to recommend or adopt an approval stance on this petition, zoning committee did recommend against it, so you could adopt staff's statement of consistency
okay, so
rather than zoning committees.
we're having the adoption of the staff statement of consistency.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, so with that, is there a motion to approve?
It has been.
And we have that. So any questions or discussion? Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, and I'm wondering if am I able to ask zoning committee a question, since zoning committee moved to deny this for being inconsistent when we've had a number of items that were inconsistent? What was the inconsistency on this one for this item not to be supported by zoning committee, yet staff is supporting it? Because it seemed like this would have been one of those that we have opposition on, because we have zoning committee stating to deny.
All right, Mr. Welton, would you please address the issue from the zoning? Oh, where is he?
Just stepped out to get,
Okay, we'll come.
we're going to
I think
retrieve
I hear the door open. No, okay.
Mr. Lansdale.
So we will,
Only the chair from the committee can respond.
I don't know who the chair would recognize, so
Okay.
I would rather have them make that decision.
Both chair and vice chair are in the back, so.
There you go.
Yes.
It's kind of like
All
when
right.
you get ready to take a bite and someone asks you a question. My apologies, I did not notice you stepped out.
Mr. Welton?
Yes,
A
ma'am.
question from Ms. Mayfield. Ms. Mayfield, would you
Were
like
you
to?
able to hear my question?
No. I
Okay,
was not.
thank you. I wanted to get an idea, because the committee, you all motioned to deny this as far as its inconsistency, but staff has submitted approval, so I would like to get a little understanding.
204, Michael Barnes.
And this is 2022-204,
Oh, yeah,
item number 53?
thank you.
Yes, sir.
There were a number of issues that were related to that one, and a number of them had to do with the placement of the residential. There were notes in return, thanks, I'm getting help here. Proximity to the quarry. Left turn, light, left turn. This handwriting is awful. The one driveway in and out was also an issue that was discussed. I've got floodplain here. Is that floodplain?
Runoff from the quarry.
Oh, runoff from the quarry. Yeah. There were, proximity would be a thing that would basically sum up a lot of this. And lack of connectivity also, because there was not connectivity to the Aldi that is immediately to the east. And the food line's across the street, also the notion of getting across the road. Thank you,
Right,
Doug.
it's we don't have a path to
Yeah.
safely cross the street.
Yeah. I mean, in general, the question of proximity was one that came up there. A little bit of designing from, retro designing in our regard, so.
I appreciate you giving the detail on that. Thank you.
Yeah. My apologies for being out of the room, but when
Oh,
you
no,
gotta go,
sir.
you gotta go.
That is not a problem. Thank you. So, Mayor, you received a motion and a
I
second.
know, we had a
Okay.
motion and a second to approve the staff comments on
So
this one.
the follow-up would be for Mr. Pettin, for me to help me understand. If all of these things were identified on the front end by the planning committee, I'm trying to understand why staff is in support when we have transitional issues of, it's great to say it's within a 10-minute neighborhood, but if you're playing Frogger to get across the street, that's not safety. If it's a one-way in and out, that egress and regress is going to be a challenge. So help me understand staff in support of it versus supporting the planning committee's recommendation.
Sure, yeah, our recommendation has been of support from the hearing time. I believe it was supported hearing and zoning committee, of course, now at final decision. It is in close proximity to that neighborhood activity center that's basically encompasses the intersection here around Sunset Road and Beatty's Ford. There is pedestrian access to the signalized intersection at Sunset, so pedestrians can get to a safe crossing intersection at Sunset. That was something that we did look at, and they did work with CDOT and NCDOT to mitigate some of the transportation and access concerns successfully. So we didn't have any significant outstanding issues. Certainly understand zoning committee's perspective on it. I think from staff's perspective, we saw it as another element of integration into the overall activity center, and that was where our recommendation stemmed mainly from.
Thank you.
All right. Any other, Ms. Johnson?
Yes, this question is for the chair of the zoning committee. If the developer made some changes, do you think that would be something that the zoning committee could then reconsider?
You know, I run from a hypothetical like Carl Lewis. So I'll defer on answering that question directly. I will simply say that people are able to make changes, and these things are able to come back to us, and we are able to reconsider them. So those are the options that are available to you. Pick one, and we don't have fast, cheap, and good.
Okay, I appreciate that honest answer. So thank you. Yeah, is that something that, would we be willing to defer this petition in case
You don't
it,
have to make a motion because it's already moved to approve.
well, I was looking at the district representative.
I second the motion for approval.
Okay,
Defer?
then motion
No.
to defer. Motion,
No, I second.
He seconded the
okay.
motion, so you would need to make a motion to defer and see if you get a second on it.
okay. Then I'd like to make a motion to defer this petition so that the developer can continue to negotiate and have the opportunity to send back to the zoning committee.
So you have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the deferral.
All right, we have a
Conversation.
motion for a deferral. Any discussion on the deferral? Mr. Driggs?
I think before we act on that, since typically the request to defer comes from the petitioner, I would like to know what the petitioner's position would be, whether it creates a hardship. I don't know if we all saw an email with aerial photography. When I looked at it, with all respect to the zoning committee, and I appreciate their work, I just didn't see those same issues. I thought the illustrations from the photography suggested there's something we ought to be able to do, but certainly I would like to hear from the petitioner before we commit one way or another on the deferral, if we could. So is anybody here to speak for the petitioner?
Yeah. Mr. Barnes?
And Madam Mayor, as Mr. Barnes is making his way down, I just would like to share, I would say it was around 5-ish, sometime between 5:45 yesterday. I drove through the area to see potential concerns, and although I saw people crossing the street, it was not at the crosswalk. Because where this potentially would be at is the equivalent of right here with a crosswalk down there. And the chances of individuals, which we see all over the city, walking an extra distance down here, especially if you have a young person with you or if you're carrying groceries to get to the crosswalk versus where this interest is going to be, is going to be a hardship.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes, I believe you were asked a question.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and Zoning Committee and staff. What's your question, sir?
The question was whether it would be a hardship for the petitioner for us to take another month before making this decision. Are there like hard cash stops or other reasons?
So I think there may be. I don't know all of their internal operations, but they've been at this for about a year, so I think there are some stresses there. And the engineers have worked this site to get to this point. So this was not the first and only rendition. It was work to get to this point. And so the issues regarding ingress and egress were addressed as best that they could be. There is the pedestrian and vehicular connectivity if you enter Sunset to get to the Aldi and the Dunkin' Donuts Center to the east of the site.
So Mr. Barnes?
Yes, sir.
We can't really, right now, on the night of the vote, and that's why I'm suggesting, would it be possible if we postpone this vote for a half an hour to an hour for you to communicate with your client and get us an answer specifically as to what problems would be created for your client if we were not to vote this tonight?
I will try to reach them, yes.
Can we do that?
Is that okay?
I have Mr., well, I don't know if we want to do that. We have a substitute motion on the floor now, so we'd have to deal with that motion, but Mr. Graham wanted to be recognized as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And then Ms. Ajmira.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I had the opportunity to talk to the petitioner, went out to the site myself, walked the site myself. The aerial clearly demonstrates that it's a short walk, so I respectfully disagree with the planning staff commission as well in terms of what they saw. It's not a bad development. It is not a bad walk in reference to proximity to the intersection for residents who would do that path. There's been no neighborhood concerns in reference to it at all. The aerial that was sent out clearly demonstrates where the walking paths are. We certainly don't encourage jaywalking throughout the city as a whole, right? And so I don't think you can point to this particular project and say that we're going to prevent it because we want to prevent jaywalking. I think residents, especially those with children, will hopefully use the safety measures afforded to them to cross the street in an appropriate fashion. And so I'm not sure if you can contact someone on the moment where you got two motions on the floor, but that seems to be a little bit problematic for me right now.
All right, Ms. Ajmira?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I share some of the concerns that's been raised by the zoning committee and some of my colleagues, but I also recognize that this is going to improve the site. It's located within 300 yards of bus stop for CATS number 7, connecting to between North Lake Mall. So I'm torn here, but Mr. Barnes, as you can see clearly, I don't think you have 6. So there is only one motion, either you deny it or we defer it. So I think I'm going to go with denial rather than, deferring rather than denial. So I will be supporting the substitute motion because clearly you don't have 6 today.
You just gave him a heart attack.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem?
I agree generally with the ideas, concerns with the zoning committee in general. I'm just not totally sure how they relate to this petition specifically. It is a short walk to the intersection. There is housing further west from the intersection currently right now. I agree about the connectivity to the resources adjacent, the Aldi and the Duncan, but I don't think any land use that we have would mandate a connection into those parking lots. So I think that's a different type of conversation we have to have as we think about further planning and development of the city. So I think this petition provides the opportunity to put denser housing in close proximity to a lot of amenities. I certainly don't believe Beatties Ford Road and Sunset Road are optimal pedestrian kind of environments right now. Does this get us closer to it? Perhaps not approving this and leaving the status quo where it's at certainly doesn't get us closer. So I'm going to be supporting approval of this. I just don't, I would love to have a conversation to kind of understand a little bit more about how you guys got this so unanimously. This is surprising, to be completely honest.
All right, so I think what I understand is the question is that it takes 6 votes to take action tonight, and we have 3 or so council members that are not here. And so if you had 5 votes, then that would mean it would not go through. And I think the question is, then the deferral is to wait until we can get more of the council members in attendance and not have it be deferred and delayed or not, or denied. Mr. Barnes, is that acceptable to your, I think the only other thing is Mr. Driggs said, can you get to call someone, but I don't know how you call a corporation this time of night unless you're going to see the CEO of their home or something like that. And I'm not even sure that person could give you a decision. So your thoughts?
I understand, sorry. I understand on the deferral piece. I'll make sure they're okay with it, and thank you for your time.
All right. So we have the motion for.
But I do want to have a conversation with you about what we changed, because we can't control the NCDOT right of way. There are things we can't control
Exactly.
around the site, which is the issue.
Okay, Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question for our Senior Assistant Attorney, just for clarification. So for council, we have 3 options for any project. And I don't have a question, Mr. Barnes. To approve, to deny, we also have the ability for a deferral. I'm trying to understand this particular conversation, because this one is new, where we have a conversation with the petitioner to basically ask for permission of whether or not we should move to a deferral when a motion was made. So I just want clarity on moving forward, how this should look.
I think because there was a substitute motion for deferral, there was a council member that would like to hear from the petitioner about, since typically the deferral requests come from the petitioners, and this would be coming from the dais. I think that the question was just for the petitioner to respond to whether how the deferral would impact them.
So traditionally, a deferral would come from a petitioner, but are we saying that council members do not have the ability to motion for a deferral?
They absolutely do.
Okay, so where historically it is the business. So I just want to make sure for clarification, say as we move forward, that we don't set a precedent of an expectation that council should, if there's a conversation regarding how we decide to vote on a project, if a deferral motion is made and then it's seconded and we have a discussion, there's not an expectation that we are then to reach out to the petitioners.
No, ma'am, it's at your discretion whether you would like to
Thank you.
defer.
All right, so at our discussion, we have a motion for deferral. All in favor of deferral, please raise your hands. 2, 3, 6, so that passes. Thank you very much. Okay,
In opposition. Go on.
I'm sorry, Ms. Ashmira?
What
Just
was-
deferred it.
No. Did someone, you have already? Okay.
53, the next item on our agenda
It was unanimous.
is item 54. We have, this one was go back to the zoning committee and was deferred,
Yep, that,
right?
54 and 55 have both been deferred, so that gets us through decisions and gets us into hearings.
All right. So now we come to that portion of our agenda, which is the hearings that we have, and I believe I discussed this issue, or just explaining this. We hear the petitions. Just a reminder that anyone wishing to speak, please see the clerk. Anyone that has, in this case, we'll have a staff presentation. They get no time limit. Then the petitioner and those in favor get 3 minutes to speak combined to the present, unless they're opponents. The opponents get 10 and get a 2-minute rebuttal. And then if no one, we'll try to move quickly through these. So with that, we're going to start with agenda item 56, a hearing 2020, withdrawn this petition. Let's go to the next one. 57, 58,
Start with 61.
61.
Correct.
All right, let's start with 61. Okay, on 61, there's a lot of paperwork in all of this. So on 61, The petition 2023-013 by Toll Brothers Apartment Living for approximately 19 acres located on the north side of Choate Circle between Lynn Legree and Freshwell Roads. It's District 3. Current zoning is Neighborhood 1A. Proposed zoning is urban residential conditional. Staff recommends approval upon resolution of outstanding issues. We have 3 speakers against and 4 speakers for. I believe that Mr. McVeigh will speak for the 10 minutes
Yes, ma'am.
after the staff presentation. So we'll start with the staff presentation, and then we'll go to Mr. McVeigh.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. 2023-013, it's just under 20 acres on Choate Circle down in the Steel Creek community, currently zoned Neighborhood 1A. Proposed zoning is for UR2 conditional. The 2040 policy map does recommend this as a community activity center. The proposal would allow for the development of a multifamily community with up to 350 dwelling units as well as accessory uses. 30-foot step back would be established from the future back curb of Choate Circle. 3 of the buildings on the site would be a maximum of 40 feet in height, and 1 4-story building with a maximum height of 50 feet. That would be the kind of U-shaped horseshoe building there to the top left of the site plan. It does provide a 35-foot Class C buffer along the southern property boundary. Does improve over 20,000, almost over 21,000 square feet as public dog park that would be dedicated to Mecklenburg County. Minimum of 5,000 square feet of improved open space would include elements like walking paths, landscaping, seating areas, and then also commits to the following transportation improvements. A 4-leg roundabout would be constructed at the intersection of Choate Circle and Walker Creek Drive. That would be where the site is accessed from. Dedication of a 41-foot right-of-way measured from the existing center line of Choate Circle. They would implement an 8-foot planting strip and 12-foot multi-use path along the site's frontage on Choate Circle, as well as an 8-foot planting strip and 8-foot sidewalk along the internal public street, and then 8-foot planting strips and 6-foot sidewalks along the western side of Choate Circle between Walker Creek Drive and the southeast property line of the Steel Creek Athletic Association. Staff does recommend approval of this petition to have outstanding issues related to transportation and site and building design to be resolved. It is consistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation for the Community Activity Center, and we will take any questions you may have following the petitioner's presentation and presentations by the public. Thank you.
All right, we'll start with Mr. McVeigh, and you're speaking for Mr. Michael Skinner, Corey
Bachstein.
all of them?
Well, we've coordinated our time, Mayor.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor. Mayor, go ahead.
Before you go and begin, I want to say that we also have several speakers in opposition. Monica Zelenik, excuse me for any mispronunciation, Jonathan Burke, Jen Kelly, as well as Mallory Ballard. Oh, Mallory Ballard is for.
Yes, ma'am.
Against Adam Bartimo and Thomas Voraniano. And I think if you will coordinate your time together to be able to use or hear from everyone in the 10 minutes would be appropriate. So, Mr. McVeigh.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of the zoning committee. I'm Keith McVeigh with Moore Van Allen. We're assisting Toll Brothers Apartment Living with this petition. With me tonight representing the petitioners Michael Skinner and Corey Bachstein, as well as Eddie Moore with McAdams, and then Mallory Ballard, representing the Piedmont Kennel Club, is also joining us in support of the petition, and we'll be addressing you shortly. As Dave mentioned, the site is on Choate Circle, just south of South Tryon. Toll Apartment Living is part of the Toll Brothers Home Building Company, a well-known luxury home builder throughout the United States. Their apartment living community seeks to bring the same level of experience to the apartment side of the residential market that the Toll home building side brings to the home building side. The team members, as I mentioned, Toll Brothers, architects is Dwell, McAdams is the civil, as well as land design, and then Moore Van Allen assisting with the entitlement process. Just in a quick summary of the request, what you'll hear from our presentation tonight about this suburban infill rezoning opportunity. It is, as Dave mentioned, compatible with the future land use map of Community Activity Center. It supports many of the goals of the 2040 comp plan, including the 10-minute neighborhood. We've had significant meetings with neighbors as this process started, both with the Steel Creek Resident Association, the Yorkshire neighborhood, which is our neighborhood directly to the east. We've also reached out to the Steel Creek Athletic Association, which is our neighbor to the west across Choate Circle, and made a number of modifications to address comments from all the folks that we've met with. We've also had a traffic impact study commissioned to look at the two adjoining intersections to the north and south. There wasn't a significant impact determined from that study. We did, however, commit to, as Dave mentioned, implementing a four-legged roundabout on Choate Circle at the main access point, and that is now part of the petition. And as Dave mentioned, we do have a positive recommendation from the staff. We will work to address those remaining issues that are listed in the staff analysis. I'll quickly turn it over to Mallory to give you a little bit of history about the Piedmont Dog Kennel Club.
Thank you, Council, for letting me speak tonight. I am president of the Piedmont Kennel Club, and I'm speaking on behalf of our club as their representative. Piedmont Kennel Club is an all-volunteer organization that is a member of the American Kennel Club, and we promote purebred dogs through conformation dog shows. Other club members who are in support of this rezoning, please stand. Club members? This club has reviewed its finances, and we can no longer afford the property due to its aging buildings, aging heating systems, costly lawn maintenance, and tax obligations. The property no longer meets our needs as far as the dog show site. It lacks air conditioning, which our exhibitors want, and a paid parking lot for RVs, which now are about 75 at our dog shows. Currently, we have our shows out of town, and they've been very successful, and it is in our best interest to sell. With that said, we leave our land on Choate Circle in capable hands. We want to leave it in capable hands. We wish to drive by 13607 Choate Circle in years to come and be proud of what we're seeing. Of the 17 offers we received for our property, we chose Toll Brothers because of their national representation. They are known for their quality buildings, building designs, completion of projects, and use of local resources. They have impressed us as they have listened to and addressed the concerns of our neighbors. Please vote yes for this rezoning. It is in the best interest of Piedmont Kennel Club and Charlotte Mecklenburg, and I think it would be a win-win for all of us. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Skina. I'm the Regional Director of the Mid-Atlantic for Toll Brothers Apartment Living, and appreciate your time today and the opportunity to speak on behalf of this rezoning request. As Keith mentioned, we're very excited about this one because we think that it really meets sort of the intent of the 2040 comp plan, future land use map, and we're proud of the outreach that we have with the community, with neighbors, and so as a part of that, I wanted to explain a little bit of the changes that we made to the plan in response to the community, to give you a little bit of a flavor of how the plan has evolved. As we mentioned, this is in the Community Activity Center, and this is a great opportunity for multifamily, higher density development with middle school, the library, and the commercial, all within a short drive, a bike, and even a walk on the greenway, the nearby greenway. So talked a little bit about this. Staff, I think, mentioned this as well. Okay, so this was our previous plan that we submitted to staff and to the community, and some of the concerns we heard: traffic, right? This is sort of an ongoing concern for the community, particularly cars that go fast on Choate Circle, and not allowing folks who live off of the neighborhoods off of Choate Circle to be able to access Choate Circle, to make lefts and rights onto Choate Circle during rush hour. There was a concern about density. It's too much, it just felt like too much. There was a concern that the highest, the tallest building, the U-shaped building, is closest to the Yorkshire neighborhood. There was some concern about pedestrian mobility and lack of public amenities, particularly from the staff report. So here's how we've addressed all of those. In response to the question of density, we've reduced the units from 375 to 350. That brings us to about 17 units an acre, which is in line with adjacent multifamily development. In response to the questions of traffic, we thought, really thought about this and how we could best. We knew that this would not support a light, that the traffic that generated from our site would not warrant a light. So we proposed a traffic circle. We met with CDOT. And they support this traffic circle, this roundabout, as a way to calm traffic, calm the traffic speed, as well as provide easy ingress and egress from the Walker Creek neighborhood across the street. We moved the U-shaped building, which was our 4-story building, away from Yorkshire and towards the multifamily development to the north. In response to questions about security from Yorkshire, we are now offering proffering, including in our plan, a 6-foot black vinyl fence that'll be along the eastern edge of our property. We've also added, in addition to the 12-foot multi-use path, which will be on the east side of Choate Circle, we're now adding sidewalks on the west side of Choate Circle to again increase pedestrian connectivity from the traffic circle to, for instance, the Steel Creek Athletic Association. And then lastly, in response to a request from the county, we have included a half-acre public dog park. This is a dog park that we will build, and then we will donate to the county. And if that doesn't work out, if that arrangement doesn't work out, we are committing to make this a publicly accessible dog park, not just for our residents, but for the whole community. We think that this honors the history of the Kennel Club. It also provides a public amenity that's not really in the Steel Creek neighborhood at this time. So we talked about, you can read about the findings of the TTM, but it does not have a significant impact on the subject intersections. And then these are just some inspirational images of the type and quality of projects that we build, and as well as some of the green space and open space that will be available to our residents. And we do have a picture of a dog park. Just a reminder, the dog park will be open to all residents of the city, of the county, and not just ours. So with that, I think we'll exceed our time, right?
That's right. We're happy to answer questions, Mayor.
Well, thank you. And now we'll hear from the folks in opposition. If you would join us down at the podium. Please be careful walking down those steps. They're kind of steep, I think. It would be helpful if you identify yourself with your name so our clerk will have the appropriate attributions for your remarks. So
My name
you
is
have 10 minutes and go.
My name is Monica Zelznick, and I oppose the rezoning request 2023-013 Toll Brothers Apartment Living. My backyard backs up to this property. My main concerns, I'm not a public speaker, so forgive me. There's some serious issues with this development, as it'll be adjacent to our neighborhood. Our main issue is crimes from the apartment complex flowing into our neighborhood. Years ago, when existing apartments at Choate Circle and South Tryon were built, the house and vehicle break-ins increased, as well as vandalism in Yorkshire. The Yorkshire HOA had to install a very tall chain-link fence between the apartments in the neighborhood to protect the neighborhood, but that fence is being repaired monthly just from people breaking through that fence. If you go to a Spot Crime app, you'll see that there's a lot of crimes happening in the area where there's an apartment complex. So they are planning a 4-story apartment building and 4 3-story buildings for a total of 350 apartments. They said it's 300 feet, but I believe it's more like 200 feet from a single-story home looking down into their backyard. So The change they're requesting is going from 3 units per acre to 19 units per acre, which is way too abrupt of a change. I did my due diligence when I bought my home many years ago, and if it was zoned for 19 units per acre, I would not have bought my home. It currently takes me about 5 minutes to get out of my Yorkshire neighborhood onto Joe Circle, and there is a traffic light there. It looks, that circle is a new thing to me, but that looks like they might be replacing that traffic light, which would make it even harder for me to get out. It's still not enough. There's wetlands in the rear and the east property lines. There's barred owls that live there on the property line. Those are federally protected nesting birds. There is just a lack of ownership and investment in the local community when it's apartment living versus owned townhomes. So many apartments have gone up in the southwest corner that nearly half the students in local schools are now in transient housing. I work with a lot of 30-year-olds. Even my daughter lives in an apartment. I'm not opposed to apartments. There's a time and a place. A lot of them are afraid that they can't buy a home because there's just not enough homes available in the near foreseeable future. So apartments absolutely have their place in our society. I've lived in apartments. And to make my point, I asked my daughter if she cared about the local schools were like in the area where she lives in her apartments, and she said, of course, said no. So if you don't own your property in the area, you're less likely to be invested in the neighborhood. And generally, if you live in an apartment and the community goes sour, then all you have to do is pick up and move to a better neighborhood, often outside of the city of Charlotte. If you own your townhome or your home, you'll be active in keeping the community a good place to live. And finally, my final notes are that I volunteer over 1,000 hours a year with youth in our city, whether it's scouts, providing opportunities for youth with socioeconomic challenges, or developing a relationship with CMPD. But passing this zoning will be pushing people like myself out of Charlotte. So,
You have 6 minutes left to share.
Hi, Madam Mayor. Thank you, council members. And while I understand the 10 minutes, it's a little odd when you have different interests that are playing out. So I understand the rules. With me today, we have three board members that represent Steel Creek Athletic Association. Apologize for the email blast I gave most of you today, but I wanted to get out and make sure you understood. We got really involved in this late. I mean, so late that we had our first meeting on it last week, and then we had some concerns that popped up. And quite frankly, the benefits that Toll Brothers touts is practically using all of the access across our private property. So take that for a moment. Think about the fact that if you own private property, we don't. We're here for kids. And quite frankly, every one of us here has spent thousands of hours for the past decades representing the kids of Steel Creek. Quite frankly, there are over 400 that are signed up for sports just this fall. And as we look at it, there are thousands of families that come through Steel Creek, both from apartments as well as in family homes. The issues we have is we are a nonprofit, completely voluntary, unpaid business, I guess the way to think about it. There is nothing that we do that can really improve the amount of revenue, because quite frankly, we have to go and ask for donations for everything related to it. We have an ambitious capital campaign of nearly $15 million to improve this property and to improve this area. What's interesting, though, is I was listening to a conversation, I don't know if it was Councilmember Mayfield or Johnson that mentioned the fact that you guys are making decisions on changing what the comprehensive plan did when it came down to community activity centers. This is just another one of those conversations where you're talking about removing a community activity center from potential use in the long run. And this is, if approved, this is not going to go back to any other use. So I want you to make sure you think about this clearly. For us, it's safety. Our youth are, quite frankly, subject to many different areas of concern. As you increase the density right across the street, you'll notice that majority of the infrastructure that they're building assumes that they're going to come to us. Well, the problem is the people who typically have basically moved into the apartment communities all around us, they don't pay for the types of services that we're offering. So we basically are going to see a significant amount of traffic across our private property that's going to cause more damages, going to cause more litter, cause more costs to our membership. And quite frankly, we're already struggling to compete with Lake Wiley and TGK and others where there's city money invested in these type of youth facilities. We've never come to the city for money. Maybe one day we could, but right now, all we'd like to do is just be left alone. Because quite frankly, where we stand today is difficult for us to understand. Furthermore, if you look at the topography of what the proposed development is, the high spot is the center. And so unless they're doing significant amount of drainage, we're gonna have significantly more watershed that comes down and across our area. That was not brought up. Lots of transportation, I'm sure they checked the box on that. But when it comes down to it, I asked for a deferral or some form of time to basically have them do a cumulative impact analysis on Steel Creek. I think the kids deserve it. I think it'd be a shame if this council approved this without actually doing more diligence. I'll introduce our treasurer.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'll make this quick. I'm Jen Kelly. I'm the board treasurer for Steel Creek Athletic Association. And just like John said, we are a youth athletic association. We want to support and give an opportunity for our children in the Steel Creek area to play sports. We offer baseball, softball, and soccer currently. We have offered flag football and football in the past. And I think a long time ago we had basketball, but that's not where we're at right now. But a lot of the concerns, like John mentioned, do involve security of our property as well as the effect that it will have on the overall property with regards to the water that comes down. When it rains, our entire lower fields of the property, because of all of the apartments that have been built around, if you look on the map, there's apartments to the north of us, and now there's going to be apartments across the street from us, that it's all cement. So all that water has to go somewhere, and it comes down to our properties, and then our kids can't play the sports on the field. So that's a huge issue that we need to address. We also, like John said, they're going to build 1 and 2 unit apartments. 1 and 2 unit apartments don't have kids. They don't have families. They're not going to come and support our facility. Whereas if they were to build townhouses or even, single family homes, that would support our actual property. So I think, just again, when you're thinking about this, I have nothing against apartments, nothing against Toll Brothers. I do think they're a great builder, but I do think you need to look at the use of the property and how it's going to ultimately affect the surrounding neighbors.
40 seconds, 37 seconds.
Hi, I'm Adam Bartimo. I'm a change agent, so I understand the need for growth in the community. But if we look at the COMP 2040, it says community area plans will be tailored for each geography, unique needs and character. So I just want you to take that in consideration based on what's being asked for here, giving us more time, making sure this is the right thing for the community. We are representing the families and children of this area, and that's very important to us. Thank you.
All right. I think your time's up. So, and now we'll have the petitioner. Thank you, guys. The petitioner has an opportunity for a 2-minute rebuttal.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone coming down and giving their comments. We have had about a dozen community meetings, Zooms, phone calls. We originally reached out to the Steel Creek Athletic Association in May, and we just got them on a call with their board members today. We had a great conversation about how we can help mitigate any externalities, any negative externalities of this development. We offered to provide money for a stormwater management study on their site. We offered to provide dollars for additional security for their site. And so those conversations are ongoing. So we appreciate their comments, and we also, we just want you to know that we're continuing those conversations. I did want to point out the Steel Creek Residents Association is not opposed. We've had significant conversations with them. The Yorkshire neighborhood to the east does not have an opinion. They're not offering an opinion, and we've had significant conversations with them as well. And just a couple of additional items. I think you wanted to address the 4-story, 200-foot, 300-foot.
Yeah, so in response to the lady that spoke regarding the location of buildings, we did purposely move the taller 4-story building, which is limited to 50 feet, away from the property line, and so it now is over 300 feet. The closest point to the closest house is over 300 feet. The closest point to the property line is 250 feet. The lower 3-story building is a 40-story building max and is over 200 feet from the property line. So we believe we have mitigated that. We also added, for security issues, as Michael mentioned, a 6-foot chain link fence, black vinyl coated chain link fence, in addition to the 50-foot Class C buffer that's along this edge. There's also a 35-foot buffer in this area as well. The tree save areas and the wetlands that were mentioned are being retained. That's the green areas you see on this plan. These are where the trees are. These also happen to be where the wetlands are. So there are preservation of both the wetlands and the tree save in this location.
Sorry, your time is up, Mr. McVeigh.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Didn't hear the bell.
Sorry, we didn't hear the bell. So with that, are there any questions?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Ajmira?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a lot to unpack here. So a petitioner mentioned several things that was offered to community. So could you talk about those benefits? Talked about stormwater study, security. Is that already included in this map?
So I feel like it requires a little bit longer discussion. We reached out to the Steel Creek Athletic Association back in May. We just now, today, were able to meet with their board. Originally, our proposal for them was an access easement across their site, which would allow folks to walk from Choate Circle, anyone along Choate Circle, to walk on the edge of their property, southern edge of their property, to the Greenway. The Greenway is you can't see it on this map, but it's just on the western side of their property. And, yeah, exactly. And how does this point? Right there. So there's an entrance to the Greenway here, which is fantastic Greenway, and well-maintained and great access to shopping, as well as, trail and activities. So our original proposal to them was, look, we understand that an easement is a legal document. We're willing to pay for that, but we think it's in the benefit of our residents as well as the broader community. What we heard back from them last week was that we were uncomfortable with an easement, and we understand that. It's their property, and they can do what they want. And when we talked to them this afternoon, we were able to sort of flesh out their pain points, and a lot of them that were spoken to you guys this evening, including security, including the stormwater. And so we said, look, we understand that our project creates some externalities that are outside of our land, and we're willing to help mitigate those externalities, if there are any, by contributing money for a stormwater management study, for example, or for additional fencing along the property line. They mentioned that there's some security concerns that they have on the northern side of their property here. They've mentioned that they've had vandalism, they've had assaults on their property. Those are painful for me to hear, because I don't like to hear that. And so we said, how can we help mitigate that? Can we install security cameras? Are there things that we can work with you guys to do? So those are our conversations with Steel Creek Athletic Association. In regards to other community benefits, I think I talked about that on the site plan slide. But the biggest ones, of course, are the public infrastructure improvements here, with the roundabout, which will not replace a traffic light. This will replace a right in, right out for Walker's Creek Drive, as well as the half-acre public dog park. So those are the other large community benefit.
So those are irrespective of whether they grant an easement or not?
The ones that we offered to Steel Creek Athletic Association, absolutely. We understand that the easement is perhaps off the table.
So to speakers that spoke, we appreciate your service as you create opportunities for our youth. One of the speakers brought up a circle traffic light and exit issue. Could you is that the one at the bottom?
Yeah.
So could you
Yeah.
address that specific concern that was raised about exit?
You'd like me to address it?
Yes.
I can't speak for the person who spoke in opposition. I'm not exactly sure which light she was referring to, that she has to wait 5 minutes to exit. This intersection does not exist today, right? Well, there's a right-in, right-out just for Walker's Creek. I believe the person who spoke lives in Yorkshire on this side of Choate Circle, so I'm not exactly sure.
So I guess if you could touch base with them, because I wasn't sure what circle traffic light that speaker was referring to. So if you can just get an answer on that, I think,
We will.
yeah, I think they specifically brought up exit issue. And drainage issue, I think you spoke about that, especially getting the stormwater study done to address the watershed and drainage issues. So, I know there are a number of issues that need to be worked through, so I hope to get an answer on all of these items in a follow-up report. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to piggyback off what Councilmember Ashmira said. I noticed from the community meeting report that there were 45 people in attendance.
That was at one of the meetings, yes.
Right, so that seems like quite a bit of community engagement, and that is something that, would concern me as a council member, and I'm sure would concern Councilmember Watlington also. So I know that you said you just heard from the Steel Creek Community Association recently?
Athletic Association.
Oh, yeah, can I be specific about that?
Yeah.
So there's really two organizations who we've had a lot of, three organizations we've had a lot of conversations with. The folks who just spoke are with the Steel Creek Athletic Association. They're the ones who have, they serve the youth, right, with youth sports. The larger neighborhood organization is the Steel Creek Residents Association, and we've had numerous conversations with them, Zooms, and they have taken a position of not opposed, particularly in response to the changes that we made from the first plan to the second plan. And then there's the Yorkshire HOA, which backs up, some of their members back up to our property on the east, and they have not taken an official position on the development.
Okay, yeah, just the 45 people, I don't know if they're all a part of the Athletic Association. It sounds like a group of folks from various entities. So fortunately, you do have some time to continue to negotiate and work with the community, and we look forward to the next steps. Motion to close?
I have some questions.
Okay.
I do have some questions for the folks from the Athletic Association, so you can come down to the lectern, whoever, one or all. So I'm just trying to understand, are you actually in opposition to this, to development happening? Or are you just not comfortable where it is right now?
Personally, as a board, we've not voted one way or the other. But I think it's fair to say that if it were to go as proposed today, we would be in opposition. But I agree that we've had conversations as late as 2:30 p.m. today on ways in which we could try to make this work. Again, that's back to my original comment of seeking time. If you look at the 45 individuals who were on that list, not a single one of them was from SEAA. And when you're looking at this, we're the largest landowner, 40 acres. So I don't know how the zoning process works, but it might be good to put a dot on where you actually see people who show up for events, because that way you can actually know when someone who owns $3.5 million of property is just starting to hear about things. And I think that's partly because we are a volunteer organization. We don't actually have a physical address for a mailbox. There's a post office box. So the process that you have in the UDO assumes some degree of correspondence in the real world. When you're working with a completely voluntary organization like ours, we don't check mail every day. So it's typically on a weekly, if not biweekly basis, so.
Well, I can't speak totally for staff, but I do know that we have to send to landowners that are in proximity. So you might have something in that box. But I would encourage you, because what I heard that you have existing issues.
We do.
On the land. I would push back on some families. I agree that 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments are not optimal for families, but folks need housing, and families are going to live where they can afford and where it's available. So I would encourage you to figure out how to stay in negotiation with the petitioner. It seems like there are mutually beneficial ways that you can find pathways forward. I would even say that even if there aren't traditional families or families with young children in these, is this an opportunity to expand how you interact with the community, right? Softball leagues and other maybe adult-oriented opportunities. I think there are opportunities here. So I would just encourage you, it sounds like you guys are at the negotiating table now. Look at this as an opportunity, perhaps, to get more of what you need to continue to move forward.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I respond to that? Because I think one of the responses would be very logical, yes, I think that makes sense. However, our charter documents were established in 1958 that donated the property from several churches for the specific purpose of youth athletics. We don't really have the ability to change charter in kind of that type of way. And so when you're talking about single, 1 or 2-bedroom apartments, those are typically single individuals or married couples who are people with small families, and they typically don't use the type of services, because if you think about it, 95% of the actual youth that come to us aren't driving age. So they have to be brought in by their parents and the like. And so when it comes down to it, we serve that 4 to 18-year-old kind of gap that exists out there for bringing people outside of their houses and playing video games and getting them active, building leadership into them, helping them understand kind of what it means to play as a team. Those are the tenets that our society needs. When you start asking us to kind of say, hey, look, adopt to a different plan, I'm not sure that's fair, to be honest.
I grew up in youth sports, playing baseball and football in New York City, so I understand the need to have fields close by to housing. And I would argue what I've heard is in order for you guys to continue to serve those folks, there's some things that might need to adjust. So I think it's all about interpretation. Happy to continue to talk about this, but again, I would just encourage all the neighbors to continue to stay at the table and figure out, because it seems like, especially with the traffic circle that deals with some of the concerns that I've heard around the community that live up and down Choate Circle, I think there are paths forward, so we just all need to keep working at it.
Okay. Thank you for.
Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Patton, question for you, actually 2 questions. One, Mayor Pro Tem just in his comments triggered a question for me. As we continue to move in this direction of multifamily and multifamily units that are 200-300 plus next to residential, when we send out petition notices and they go out to homeowners only, I'm trying to figure out what the impact of that is going to be, because as was stated, even though it goes to homeowners and businesses, I believe, that are in the area. But as we keep moving forward with 300-plus multifamily developments, how is staff planning to ensure community engagement if you have a large organization that did not receive information and if the rules were followed? But if you're surrounded by multifamily, and multifamily more often is owned, some domestically, a lot of it internationally, how are we actually ensuring that the residents who may be impacted are a part of these conversations?
So mailing lists go out to everybody that owns property, so it's property owners within 300 feet of the petition. The Steel Creek Athletic Association was on our mailing list. We mailed it to P.O. Box 7195 back in May for a courtesy notice, and then earlier this month for the public hearing notice. So if that's an updated address, we would need to be aware of that, but that all comes from property tax records through the county. So we go through that identification of all property owners. So if the owner is not living there, they still get a letter. There are some challenges with larger multifamily projects in terms of identifying all tenants that live there, but as far as single-family property owners and entities such as the Athletic Association, they do get captured as property owners, they do get letters, and they get sent to whatever address they're registered under through the county's tax office.
So if it's a multifamily unit, it goes to whatever
The operator.
corporation owns that development.
That's correct.
And as we're creating more and more multifamily that are next to residential, are we looking at creating a new standard of where that 300 feet is identified from? Like, say, it's from the main road versus within the physical building address or the main building address. How is that identified?
So the state identifies what adjacency is per the statute, and that's anything that shares a property line or is directly adjacent, separated by a road or railroad. So we take that, and then council adopted a policy, I'm not sure how long back, but to expand that beyond to 300 feet around the subject property. So no matter how large the property is, it's a 300-foot radius around it. And if a road kind of splits some of the properties, they're still considered adjacent. So that's where we take our measurements from.
And additional question, for clarification, is this roundabout replacing the light that is currently there or no?
No, there is no
Okay.
current light at that intersection. The closest light is down at the next intersection, I believe, with Smith Road. This would be a brand-new roundabout intersection, which would then remove the right-in, right-out for the folks that live off of Walker's Creek Drive there and create a roundabout, full-access movement for everyone.
Okay, so if you can help, I don't know if you have your clicker on you to help identify, because one of the residents did note that she has concerns with pulling out of her current neighborhood. She has a light, so I'm trying to get an idea of from how far would this potential roundabout be from that light?
So.
And would it cause any
So the
potential
closest light that
traffic
I can
challenges?
see that's off of this is at this intersection, I believe it's right here. So travel out of that intersection, then there's a stoplight, I believe, right there at Smith Road.
So a stoplight right there, and the
Yeah, and then
roundabout is
would be here,
proposed?
and then another signal at the main intersection.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just have two questions. A couple months ago, in May, we talked about some type of policy or modification to look at transitional lots from single-family subdivision to multifamily. I know we talked about the UDO and modifications. Would this be something that would be appropriate for that, or?
No, this would be a different zoning classification that I believe was looking at by right development under the N1 districts, which wouldn't fall under this category here.
Even though it backs up to Yorkshire?
Again, the text amendment stuff that we had talked about was just looking at potential changes to single-family duplex, triplex by right development. I don't know how much it factored in adjacency. I know there was some conversation about that, but without all the details in front, I don't know how that would get captured around single-family adjacencies.
Okay. I know that went to our committee, so maybe that's something
Yeah.
we can talk about, that adjacency and transition. It's important
We
to
are
take a
right
look
now
at.
in committee looking at the N1 and a possible text amendment to the N1 related to the inclusion of single-family within the mix. That has been, the staff has proposed to send that to the UDO committee, the advisory committee, and so that will be discussed there, but we are not yet looking at a situation like this one.
Thank you. I know we're not looking at it because it's not our current policy, but it is a concern, and we're going to see it more and more, and I think it's a fair concern from residents. Secondly, I just want to ask, have we considered mailing the notices out to renters?
So we don't have property addresses for renters. We have to go by the address that's listed on the tax records from Mecklenburg County. So we have talked about that. We have not put a system in place yet that would capture just mailing it to the direct address. We've always gone by just property ownership information versus just the physical address, because sometimes they're not one and the same.
And I understand that, but as the city changes and housing is not really affordable, more people are renting, and, you know, the areas are changing with these multifamilies, just like in this example. So it might be something that is time for a shift, just something to think about. Thank you.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Any discussion of that motion that's been made and properly second? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Seeing none, that's unanimous. We will move on to agenda item number 62, rezoning petition 2023-030 by Ryan Land Holdings LLC, located on approximately 123.8 acres on the south side of University City Boulevard, northeast of Interstate 485, and east of Bat Creek Church Road in the ETJ in County Commission 3, Mr. Dunlap's district, closest to City Council District 4, Ms. Johnson's district. The current zoning is MX2 Mixed Use District, and the proposed zoning is I2CD General Industrial Conditional. Staff does not recommend approval of this petition in its current form, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 10 minutes.
All right, thank you. 2023-030, it's about 124, just shy of 124 acres. It's off of University City Boulevard, actually accessed more off Caldwell Park Drive. The site is currently zoned MX2. It was recent rezoning that was zoned MX2 Innovative, and the proposed zoning is for I2 Conditional. And the adopted land use from the policy map, or the adopted place type, does call for Neighborhood 1. That was as a result of that recently approved rezoning to the MX Innovative District. So the proposal under this petition would allow up to 2.5 million square feet for a data center as the primary use. That would include some accessory and ancillary uses like warehousing, distribution from those data centers only, and an electric substation that wouldn't exceed 10 acres, which would be coordinated with Duke Energy. Those accessory uses that I mentioned would also not exceed 10% of the total square footage. Does prohibit some things in the I2 district, such as abattoirs, adult establishments, automobile, truck and utility rentals, service stations, junkyards, crematory facilities, et cetera, landfills, things that we find to be more than noxious uses, and I2 have been written in as prohibitions. Does propose vehicular access from that Caldwell Park Drive. That would be extended to the site and built to local industrial standards. Would also provide an emergency and temporary private secondary access. That could be through Abercrombie Street there just to the south. Also would provide a 12-foot wide multi-use path and 8-foot planting strip along the frontage of Caldwell Park Drive and the extension of Caldwell Park Drive. Does specify that building facades from public streets would avoid the use of undifferentiated surfaces, so they would include at least 2 following design elements: variations in building height, step backs or recesses, fenestration, variation in materials, pattern, textures or colors, or use of accent materials. Would also provide a minimum of 30-foot Class C buffer along I-485, a 50-foot Class A buffer adjacent to the residential uses along University City Boulevard, as well as fairly significant undeveloped space there to the south, adjacent to the single-family residential community that, again, is south of this petition. Also a dedicated total of 5 acres to Mecklenburg County Park and Rec for a greenway connection and a public access area. As mentioned, staff does not recommend approval of this petition in its current form. We would like a little bit more information on noise mitigation and some buffering to the nearby single-family uses, mainly to those to the south. I do understand there was some communications and conversations with some of those community members, including a recent trip to a similar center to understand how some of those noise impacts may be or may affect the houses that are just to the south of the site. I understand that was a positive interaction. I'll let the petitioner elaborate a bit on that, but that's something also that we'd like to get a little bit better understanding of, is any noise mitigation that would be proposed as a result of this use. So we'd like to see some of that incorporated prior to zoning committee, but outside of that, staff, those are the questions that we would like to get answered. So with that, I'll turn it over to the petitioner, and we will take any questions you may have following their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colin Brown, I believe you'll be organizing your time. You have 10 minutes.
Great. Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Colin Brown on behalf of the petitioner. This is kind of fun. It's rare that I encounter a zoning or use that I have not worked with before. And so here we have a data center. And I've read about these kind of all over the state of North Carolina. We see the big splashy headlines, the data centers coming to these counties surrounding Charlotte. And so I was pretty interested when we got the call about this. As Dave mentioned, this is a site that you're probably familiar with. Here it is. We're on the edge of Cabarrus County. There's the county line. Be great to capture this in Mecklenburg County, but we're out at the edge of 49. There's 49. There's 485. This may be familiar. We brought this through a rezoning a little over a year ago, working with Councilmember Johnson, and it is currently entitled for about 600 homes. When the data center opportunity came along, the petitioner thought this was interesting. We thought the site makes sense for a couple reasons. Here it is, 130 acres, so large site, big enough for something like this. Really bordered, so here we've got 485. To the north of the site, there's a heavy rail corridor. Here to the east of the site is an existing Duke Power substation and then a Duke heavy transmission line. So kind of all sides of this site are buffered. So it really kind of, there's good separation there already. We thought it made a lot of sense. So we've proposed the current zoning. Again, here's what's allowed now, 600 homes or so. We talk about traffic. We talk about school impact. The current zoning, if it were developed residential, would have 5,000 plus trips. A data center would have a couple hundred or less. So it does have a significantly less impact on the parts of the infrastructure that we talk about. Prior to that rezoning, this did have a recommendation for industrial type uses. So it's something the city has acknowledged before. So we think it's a good fit. As Dave mentioned, staff has a couple outstanding issues. We had some attendance at our community meeting. We had some folks say, hey, what do these sound like? And to be honest with you, I've never heard one. So our team did take a couple community leaders out to a site in Forest City so they could see it and hear it yesterday. I won't speak for them. I'll let you kind of hear from them. My understanding too was that that was positive, and we plan to continue over the next month working with those community leaders and staff to add some conditions that will tailor this to address those issues. Happy if any of you are interested in going out on the site. We're happy to coordinate another to go out and look at those so you actually see what they look like in person. That said, since I am not the expert on data centers, I'm going to ask Greg Rolls to talk a little bit about that, about the company, and about why this location in Charlotte.
Thank you, Colin.
Next slide.
Mayor Lyles, Mayor Pro Tem Winston, honorable members of the council. My name is Greg Rolls. I'm the Managing Director of Development and Construction for American Real Estate Partners and its data center platform, Powerhouse Data Centers. We appreciate the opportunity to discuss our plans for the property this evening. We're extremely excited about this development and the opportunities it presents for Charlotte and the community at large. A little bit about our company. AREP is a 20-year-old company with 150 professionals operating in real estate investment, development and construction, leasing, property and asset management, and marketing. We're a highly experienced fund manager and operating partner with a long-tenured executive team that averages over 30 years in commercial real estate. We successfully delivered complex projects for Fortune 500 companies like AOL, Verizon, Amazon, and Bank of America. To date, our Powerhouse Data Center platform has committed over $1 billion to roughly 2.2 million square feet of data center space. Why are we here? What's driving the need for data centers? We continue to create and consume more and more data every day and on a worldwide scale. Next one. Oh, okay, you're good. Coupled with the rapid and unprecedented acceleration of high-density computing, an undersupply of data centers has been created. High-density computing supports everything from artificial intelligence to self-driving cars and the constant need for hyperscalers to process more data faster. Hyperscalers, just to clarify, are really the 5 or 6 largest users of data centers and consumers of data. Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Google, and Oracle. To satisfy the undersupply, lesser utilized markets have emerged, or edge markets, which bring processing and storage closer to where data is generated and consumed. We believe Charlotte is one of those emerging markets which is ready to break out and accelerate. Why do we believe that? 3 primary reasons for here in Charlotte. Number 1, connectivity. Downtown Charlotte offered several network peering sites and interconnection points where internet networks connect and exchange traffic. Additionally, major fiber carriers already exist throughout the city, providing diverse paths to these peering and interconnect points. Number 2, power. Power constraints in many major internet markets have refocused users to other areas that can provide reliable and available power, and Duke Energy does just that. They are also a leader in renewable energy production. Currently, 50% of their power comes from various renewable sources, which is very important to the hyperscale users. And finally, demand. Co-location providers and hyperscalers are already here, thereby validating the market, but there are few that are as proximate to downtown and the peering points as we will be. Proximity means lower latency and faster compute speeds. A few of the positives that we bring to our developments. The design you see here is just one example of how we strive to be good stewards for the community. In many markets, you'll see monolithic concrete boxes for data centers, but we take great pride in our superior aesthetic and thoughtfulness of design. Economic and community benefits, tax base boost, not only during construction and operation, but also from the deployment of tenant-specific hardware, specifically servers. High-paying job opportunities and highly skilled local workforce, and minimal impact on local services, schools and emergency services, and minimal impact on traffic. Data centers are far less populated than any other use class. More about the untapped opportunity and more positives for Charlotte and the property. Continued data center investment will likely consolidate regional demand in the Charlotte metro area, increasing the city's profile as a world-class destination for technology companies. And some site-specific attributes. First of all, as Colin mentioned a moment ago, power. The red dot indicates the site. The black dot indicates a tie station that Duke Energy has on site presently. Next slide. And seen here, that tie station is in the top left corner, and you can see its proximity to the site. It is the convergence of multiple high transmission pieces, a study that was done by Ernst & Young on major data center markets. And its comment relative to Charlotte was, demand in Charlotte could grow significantly as one hyperscaler entrance could attract others in an effort to compete. And they also outlined the other various advantages of Charlotte: immediate and available power, efficient, lower cost of land and lower cost of power, which is very important, connectivity that I spoke to earlier, and a significant potential for growth. So in summary, why we believe in this development and in Charlotte: connectivity and power are in place, and major users have already validated them, creating a strong ecosystem that is poised for growth. We look to take advantage of that growth opportunity. We're confident in it and look forward to working with the city to make that a reality. Thank you.
We've got about 40 seconds left, but we'll see that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you for that update on your company and organizations. data centers like these can be the trifecta of growth in certain areas, and in particular in western part of North Carolina, they've seen a tremendous amount of growth with data centers in that space. And I believe that this would be a benefit to Charlotte overall, given that we're number one in business in the entire country, as well as number 5 as it relates to technology presence in the entire country. We're the 5th highest state of technology companies and organizations. So the good paying jobs and the minimal traffic impact, all of those things are wonderful. However, I do know that the community has voiced some concerns about noise mitigation and the humming that comes with the presence of data centers. And I would like for you to just speak a little bit about the experience that you had in Forest City, because I believe it was a positive experience and some of the community members have a different perspective now. So can you share a bit about that?
It's a funny interaction we had with one of the community members who I think you all know. She emailed me and said, hey, I watched this episode of Blacklist last night, and it drove people crazy. And of course, I'd never Googled, so I Googled data. And when you go on Google, you can go down a black hole. And so I was like, are these things terrible? And the answer was, well, 10 and 15 years ago, they were pretty loud. But with the technologies we have now, they're not. And so we thought rather than, and we do have a sound consultant here just in case tonight, rather than talk sound consultants and decibels, we ought to just go see one and see what it's really like. I was not able to join yesterday, but our team had gone out and they said, you can't hear this thing. And I said, okay, we'll take some others and let them see if that's the case. So that was the experience, and that was Meta's facility out in Forest City. And so I think just seeing it in person and seeing how the modern facilities are not a loud buzz or anything was, and I'll let them speak for themselves, but I think that was it. When you go see one and it's not loud, you see that for yourself, you feel better and say, okay, there is a way to do this. So we'll continue talking with staff. Staff asked us specifically about a berm. At this location, we don't know, but we're happy to look into that.
Great. Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you. Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. A couple of questions, because I know a little bit about data centers, not a lot, so I just did a Google search. And one of the things that comes up in drier areas mainly is the amount of water usage as well as electricity. And I'll have to dig more into reading all this, since this isn't like size 10 font, but it would be helpful if you can share what does that mitigation look like for environment, not just the possible sound, but the amount of water usage that is needed, as well as electricity, because in areas that are drier, they're having a lot of concerns. And even though we're not as dry as some areas, we've experienced not as much rain as we had a decade ago. So what is the model with this data center as far as environmental controls and impacts?
Well, we still don't, it's an excellent question. We still don't fully understand what the final design is going to look like. But from a mechanical cooling perspective, there are different types of equipment that can be used in order to cool the data center. Some use very little water. Some actually use more water than that. The water that we do, that could be used potentially, actually comes from the municipal system. So we're not extracting water from the aquifer beneath the site. We're not doing that. So if in fact we were going to have a data center that required water for cooling, we would certainly work with the Municipal Water Authority to make sure that it's available and use it responsibly and use it only to the extent, obviously, that they would allow.
So would the amount of gallons of water potentially be needed be based on the square footage of the building? Because it's gallons of water that's generally needed for a data center. So I'm trying to get an idea. I know staff has some concerns, but when we're looking at some potential growth challenges with access to sewer and water currently, I'm just trying to get an idea of what that potentially could look like. And Mr. Patton, there's a question also for you in there as far as, I don't know if that was one of the questions that you all had as part of the outstanding issues, but is it based on the square footage or the design?
It's actually based on the type of mechanical cooling equipment that's selected to most effectively cool the data center. That's correct.
Is there any consideration, since we did rezone this a number of years ago, Mr. Brown, for residential, to have a combination of residential and industrial? So this is just for an industrial site that's right here in a space surrounded. 'Cause we have our CAP plans and our environmental plans and goals. I'm trying to think about versus this being in an industrial area where it's surrounded by other buildings, the potential, we talk about the unintended consequences. Well, we're looking at this decision now. I'm trying to think of all the possible questions that I could ask you in this hearing to see the conversations that are happening and also the expectation I have of staff and their questioning as well as zoning committee for what the potential worst-case scenario impact could be for something like this being so close to residential versus being off of Westinghouse or in our more, closer to the airport in our more predominant industrial areas.
Yeah, so I shook my head no when I said no residential component. Actually, the petitioner, who controls the property, would continue to own a piece here to the south. It could have a residential component. That would be the nearest residential units.
I'm thinking for the employees.
It would be separated. This would really be, the data center area would though be really kind of self-contained between the interstate, the rail corridor, the existing Duke facility, and Duke's high power line. There would be, the petitioner would intend to develop a small number of residential units next door. He controls both properties now, so he has every incentive to make sure those are good neighbors, that this facility is a good neighbor to his future residential parcels. And that zoning, it's going to kind of remain unchanged. And we're happy, this is a new entry into the market, right? And so it's tough to cover all this. So we're happy to do follow-ups. We kind of wanted to kind of get it out there together. We'll be happy to put together a visit. So let's just have an ongoing conversation.
Appreciate that, because again, the article I'm looking at is in Mesa. It's very different than our climate.
I Googled too and went down a dark hole. So I said, going to see it's the way to do it and learn. So we're happy to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Johnson?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. When I met with the developer and the developer reps, I had a question also about the effect or impact on the environment. And I was asking questions. I was surprised that the noise level was one of them. So it was nice to hear from the residents. How close is this to the single-family subdivision?
There will be, I think, so here is single family to the south of us. I think we're probably talking well over 1,000 feet as we've looked at that between buffer on our side. As it turns out, we may need a new Duke station. The Duke station we're trying to put between ourselves and that single family neighborhood to be even greater buffer. But over 1,000 feet is what we're looking at. And that's frankly what staff is asking us for, because our current zoning has just site as building envelope. And so staff is saying, look, how far south are you going to bring those buildings so that we can have a line? And that's what the team is working on designing now. We have until Thursday to get that plan in. So I think in our future plan, we'll have a more exact answer for you on that separation.
Okay, and is that 1,000 feet all the way around?
No, that's your question, and what I was responding to was to the nearest single family.
Okay.
So that's where we're trying to be the most sensitive to the area that's not separated by, an interstate.
Okay. And what's the name of that subdivision? You can email it. If you'll email me that, that'd be good.
I don't want to get it wrong. The Back Creek neighborhoods on this side of 485 is who we've been in the most contact with, but I'll get you the names.
Is there any, and Councilmember Mayfield mentioned unintended consequences. I mean, if you followed me, you know that phrase just kind of is my pet peeve, because we're elected to mitigate those consequences. So some things are, while they might be unintended, they're not unforeseeable. So it's our job to make sure that we mitigate those. What about effects on health? from the radiation from data center. Is there any documentation or any study on that?
I want to call Kenna. Did we get him on the speaker list?
I think we're happy to, there's none that I'm aware of, or that our team is aware of. Again, we'll be happy in follow-ups with you. We have a number of consultants with us that we can sit down one-on-one and go through everything that they know.
Okay. It just seems like we don't know what we don't know, you know?
And it's funny, you don't know and I don't know either because I haven't done a lot, but the good news is we've got a developer that does know a lot, that's on the team and has the consultants to do that, you know, in a forum that I think where we can really communicate that.
And I'll just reiterate, Councilmember Johnson, that I'm not aware of any adverse health effects as the result of data centers being in existence and operating.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Thank you. Move to close.
Mr. Driggs.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So we're talking about noise. I'm wondering what kind of objective reference we have here. For example, we have a noise ordinance that says you can't create more than 70 decibels at the property line and so on. Do you know what kind of decibel sound levels there would be on the line to residential properties?
We've got a lot of experts that do, and we would certainly be in conformity with the Charlotte noise ordinance. One of the things, if you do go down this Google hole, it says, oh, it's not the loud, it's the humming. And so there was a concern about the humming. And I think it helps to see in the more modern facilities, you don't hear the hum either. So it's, to the objective standards, though, certainly we can.
Right, so there, we've had discussions in the past about whether A-weighted, C-weighted, and so on. And there are different qualities of noise that can measure differently. So if we could get more objective about that, I guess. And that was why my question to you, Mr. Pettin, was going to be, when you say you want additional information on noise mitigation, what exactly what would satisfy you? What are you looking for?
I think we'd like to also understand what the difference in from what we know about previous types of older facilities that have raised some of those concerns over the years. Again, as Mr. Brown stated, myself included, I haven't worked on a data center project in my planning career yet either, so I don't have much experience with these either, so I think that's why we're asking these questions. So I think just understanding what the difference is from previous built facilities that, you know, have some of those noise impacts that we all can kind of go in and read about versus what the technology is now. If we can get some explanation of how these operate, where some of the buildings will be in proximity to the residential, so we can understand, is noise really an impact, or is it more because some of those outdated facilities have equipment that just doesn't operate as efficiently? But just some additional info from the petitioner and some of their noise experts on how these are set up, where those buildings may be in reference to the single family to the south. That will certainly be a great start for us.
I mean, you're right on 485. That's pretty loud. I live near 485, and I can attest to that myself. And it's fair to say that if you did get comfortable on the issue of noise, that then you would be willing to support this?
I believe those are the main issues that we've got concerns with. I know we've got an inconsistency with this petition as far as the policy map goes. I will point out that the previous policy for this area, the previously adopted plan, did recommend this to be an industrial site. It's just that change to MX that we went through back in, I believe, 2019 or 2021 that rezoned it to this residential piece, actually changed that map from industrial to residential. So this was always envisioned as an industrial land use area until that petition changed it back. It was approved in May of 22, looking back on it. So I think it does make some sense for a facility that's not as, and when you think about industrial uses like warehousing and distribution that we've seen so much of over the last 4 or 5 years, with the traffic impacts associated with those, heavier truck traffic and those types of things, this would, from what we understand, would be less of a traffic generator. So in terms of industrial uses, it's more industrial on its surface, but not industrial intensive, or in the sense of, you know, some of those trip generations with heavy trucks, or, you know, some of the manufacturing types of uses that you would typically see. So I think if we get through those additional issues that we've cited, that will certainly put us, I think, in a better position to feel a little bit more comfortable with this request.
I know that our own Donata Jackson is involved in the dialogue that we have about this. I want to shout out to her, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Mayfield.
Mr. Patton, I would like to encourage that outside of the noise, that we look at the environmental impact, working with Sarah Hazel and with Phil Rieger and his team with our CAP. And as y'all are having the conversations, there is ways to build greener data centers. There are some options that are out there because we have seen across the nation some challenges with data centers in communities. So outside of just the water usage and the electricity usage, unfortunately, in other areas, there has been environmental impact for residents, and some of them showing up in children in forms of different potential health-related issues. But there are some greener alternatives, so I would love to be able to have a meeting to learn a lot more, not even a little, a lot more about the plan, as this is something new for our area. For me, looking at this seems like something that really should be industrial area, not around immediate residential, because even across the street, we know the impact is more than just the potential of humming. There can be a serious environmental impact when we have some CEOP goals, so it will be helpful, because what I did not see, Mr. Patton, in the staff's comments is our conversations with our green team. That will be helpful, as this is something brand new, and you very well be opening the door for other opportunities, making sure that we try to create the best outcome for everyone. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
I would say, it is interesting in relation to that. Data is very energy intensive, and you see that a lot of it draining local power in areas of and the close proximity that this has to power transmission. It would be interesting to see how many data centers actually have that advantage, or if it is a distance transmission that does add to that. So just interesting. But motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion of that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you. We will move on to item number 63, rezoning petition 2022-049 by Turnstone Group LLC, located on approximately 9.84 acres on the south side of Old Dowd Road at the intersection with Sam Wilson Road in the ETJ Board of County Commission District 2, Ms. Leake's district, closest to City Council District 3, Ms. Watlington's district. The current zoning is NS Neighborhood Services, and the proposed zoning is I2CD General Industrial Conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation and site and building design. There are no speakers against it, so after the staff's presentation, we'll have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. 2022-049, it's 9.84 acres on Old Dowd Road, just south of, just at the intersection with Sam Wilson Road. It is currently zoned NS Neighborhood Services. The proposed zoning is for I2 conditional. The adopted place type is for commercial for this site. The proposal would allow up to 92,000 square feet of indoor self-storage, as well as warehousing, warehouse distribution, and offices as secondary uses. It does allow for accessory uses permitted in the I-1 district. It also allows for outdoor storage of boats and recreational vehicles. Does prohibit things like adult establishments, automobile service stations, repair garages, car washes, dry cleanings, landfills, etc. Would also provide a minimum 54.5-foot Class A buffer. That would be reduced from the typical 73 feet due to having a berm included as part of it. Also provides landscape screening between the proposed outdoor storage area and Old Dowd Road. You can see that on plan left. And also commits to the following transportation improvements that would include 150-foot westbound left turn lane on Old Dowd Road, would restripe southbound Sam Wilson Road to include a combination of a through left turn lane. Would also install a traffic signal at the site entrance and intersection of Old Dowd and Sam Wilson Road to be coordinated with both CDOT and NCDOT. And an 8-foot planting strip and 6-foot sidewalk would be incorporated along the site's frontage on Old Dowd Road. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. We do have some outstanding issues with transportation and site and building design to work through. While it's inconsistent with the commercial place type, there is some self-storage uses that are allowed in commercial, but this included enclosed self-storage facility, it would fall under inconsistent and would take it to more of a manufacturing logistics place type. But overall, staff doesn't have any significant concerns as there's manufacturing logistics place types in close proximity, including adjacent to this site. So with that, we'll turn it over to the petitioner and take any questions you may have following the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. You have 3 minutes.
As Dave mentioned, this is a site that's got some challenges. It's got a rail corridor, a gas pipeline, a Duke right-of-way, and a stream buffer, so most of the site will be undeveloped. One of the things that would fit on the site is a self-storage facility. The reason we're going for I-2 is this is an area where folks have a lot of boats and RVs with their proximity to the lake. They need a place to park those as their HOAs do not allow it. And so this site seemed to be a good fit. So that's what we're proposing. Very challenging, but again, most of the site will be undisturbed. Building at this location, all-site parking area there. As Dave mentioned, I think it will be able to address all of the transportation issues in our revised plan that we'll submit prior to zoning committee. Happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Mayfield.
So it's boat water storage?
Well, no, no. We have an area. So if folks own boats and RVs, most of them cannot, if you have a house with an HOA, they can't park their boat or RV there. So they're looking for, where do you park your boat? So it's not in the water. It would just be an area where they can.
Oh, like if you have it on the back of a trailer?
Correct.
Okay,
You
I
come and park it
understand.
there.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay.
There's apparently a real demand for it in this part of Charlotte, which is near the lakes.
Move to close the hearing.
Second. Motion been made and properly second to close public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, raise your hand. Seeing none, that is unanimous. We'll move on to item number 64, rezoning petition 2022-164 by KTED LLC, located on approximately 3.9 acres on the north side of Albemarle Road, west of Harrisburg Road, and south of Pence Road in Council District 5, Ms. Molina's district. The current zoning is IC1 institutional campus and R12 MFCD multifamily residential conditional. The proposed zoning is R12 MFCD multifamily residential conditional and R12 MFCD multifamily residential conditional with the site plan amendment. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation, environment, and site and building design. There are no speakers against this, so after staff's presentation, petitioner will have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. 2022-146, just under 4 acres off Albemarle and just to the west of Circumferential Road. It's currently zoned IC1, and there's a small portion of that zone R12MF. This petition is actually incorporated as part of the overall project with that R12 piece just to the left, so there is some integration between the two sites. And so this petition, again, is proposing to go to R12 MF conditional, and that site plan amendment is really just for that small portion there, just in that orange sliver. Overall, it is generally consistent with Community Activity Center, not consistent with that Neighborhood One Place type recommendation that's included on the policy map. The proposal is up to 47 single-family residential attached units located within those illustrated building envelopes there in orange. All residential units would have pedestrian connections to sidewalks. Internal private drives would connect to Dunsinane Drive Extension. A 26-foot Class C buffer along property lines that abut existing single-family residential and institutional uses would be provided. That could also be reduced if they provide a wall and/or fence within that buffer. And then it does also illustrate a 30-foot and 35-foot post-construction control buffer, water quality easement, as well as some open space. You can see that there just on the bottom left hand of the plan. Overall, staff does recommend approval of this petition. We do have some outstanding issues that we'll continue to work with the petitioner on, get those hopefully cleared up before the zoning committee meeting in a couple of weeks. Again, this petition is inconsistent with that Neighborhood One Place type. It does mention inconsistent with Community Activity Center. Center. There is some residential uses allowed in the Community Activity Center. It may not be this envisioned for this kind of single-family attached, maybe more intensive uses, but generally, staff didn't have any concerns with those place types being modified, and if it did get approved, it would take this to Neighborhood 2, which would be generally in line with what was approved just next door on that R12 multifamily piece that, again, this is integrating into as part of the overall project. So with that, we'll turn it over to the petitioner, and we'll take any questions you may have following their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Bob Davis. I'm the principal of R.D. Davis Engineering. This site is, if you can see, the heavy use, commercial use on Albemarle Road. To the south, to the north is traditional R3. We believe that townhome community is the perfect and appropriate step back down from the more intense commercial to the residential. You may have a letter from the pastor of Cornerstone Church that was submitted through the clerk where he supported it. They've had a tremendous problem with drugs, prostitution, and other people hanging out in that area behind these residences, and they're really looking forward to this going into place to be able to get a little bit more stable situation there. That's all I have. We are committed to doing whatever we have to do to work with staff to get the outstanding issues resolved, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Mayfield.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for the petitioner. Is this a for sale or rent product?
At this time, I'm not sure.
We have noted in here, I think this question is for you, Mr. Patton. I was looking at one of the notes that we have. So we say for this 3.9 acres, the entitlement is too many uses to determine. But for this use, based on a 47 single-family attached, we're looking about potentially 310 trips a day. But we're also looking at the possible CMS impact all of the areas except for Rocky River, which I believe is a high school, is over 100%. So I'm trying to understand the recommendation of the petition based on the place type and the area.
Sure. So school-wise, the existing development could generate 1 student. CMS let us know, and then under this proposal, up to 8. Even with those 8 students, all the percentages for the schools, both for J.H. Gunn, Albemarle Road, and Rocky River High, all remain at their percentage. I know some of those are 103 and 107% for the elementary and middle, but there aren't any increases as a result of this petition to those percentages. And for us, when we looked at the petition, some commercial uses just to the south that would be able to be accessed by residents that live here, as well as the petition back in 2020 that was approved for essentially a very similar product, and that petition worked very closely with both the community and at the time Councilmember Newton to get through that process successfully, and we saw this as a bit of an extension of that project and didn't have any real significant concerns, even though it doesn't line up 100% with that community activity center. I think it does still contribute to the overall health of having an activity center that has both mix of non-residential and residential uses in fairly close proximity to it.
Okay, and in the outstanding issues, Mr. Patton, we have on here for note 4, add a conditional note specifying all transportation improvements will be approved and constructed before the site's first building certificate of occupancy is issued. We're thinking about that and thinking about the development and the final pavement, because I'm noticing this in some neighborhoods where we have a development that may be 2, 3, 4 years old, but the final paving of the road before it's transferred to the city hasn't been done. So are these outstanding issues, will address that on the front end between 3 and 4?
So the timing of that final asphalt wouldn't be necessarily tied to, I don't believe, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, tied to that first CO. It would be the improvements for dedication of right-of-way, any new road construction that's associated with the project, sidewalk construction, but that final top coat of asphalt, that final, what they like to refer to as like that last inch or so of asphalt wouldn't be impacted by this. That gets done once they get that green light to then put that final coat on. And usually that comes after everything is fairly well closed out so they don't continue to tear it up. But the things like, any other off-site improvements or the connection, to the existing development just to the west that this would tie into, all that has to be done and in place prior to that first certificate of occupancy. So it's essentially all those big improvements that get you the infrastructure put in, and then that final bit of asphalt, that final top coat, that usually comes at the very end.
And the final question for whoever has the clicker, if you can give me an idea of, under environment number 5, is the site must show a minimum of 15% of the overall site as tree saved. So where is that?
So it's a pretty heavily wooded site, and there are some tree save areas identified on the site plan. And a lot of times they will show that. It may move around a little bit during permitting. We just want to make sure that the petitioner is aware and has the appropriate notes on there that say they'll adhere to the tree ordinance and just make sure that there's not a conflict on the plan. So that either comes in just providing that note that says we'll meet the tree ordinance, or showing that graphically on the plan, or both. So we just need to get that rectified, but I don't see that as being an issue heading into zoning committee.
So for moving forward, if we say 15% as far as tree save, you're identifying, for my understanding from staff, when you're looking at it, you're looking at 15% of the total acreage. 15% of that, but there's not identifying a section or area, because we've seen a lot of clear cutting that has happened. But we're just saying out of this total acreage, there's the expectation and the understanding that 15% of that must be maintained so that we can have mature trees.
Yeah, they could either maintain it. I don't know if they have options for replanting in this district. I'd have to follow up and ask our urban forestry folks, but there has to be some combination of that to meet the 15% requirement on site, and I can get you some details in a follow-up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move to close the hearing.
Second. Motion been made and properly second. All in discussion of that? Hearing none. All in favor of closing public hearing, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Seeing none, that's unanimous. We will move on to item number 66. Rezoning petition 2023-014 by Charlotte Truck Center Incorporated, located on approximately 1.29 acres on the south side of Cannon Avenue, east of North Graham Street and north of Interstate 85 in Council District 1, Ms. Anderson's district. The current zoning is N1B, Neighborhood 1B, and the proposed zoning is B2, General Business Conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of requested technical revisions related to transportation. There are no speakers in opposition, so after staff's presentation, petitioner will have 3 minutes.
Okay, this is approximately 1.29 acres located on the south side of Cannon Avenue, east of North Graham Street and north of Interstate 85. It's currently zoned N1B, neighborhood 1B, and it's got a single-family house on it. Its proposed zoning is B2CD, general business conditional. The 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood 1 for the site. The petition would allow off-street parking and other uses on the adjacent site. Off-street parking includes customer parking, employee parking, and the parking of inventory vehicles only. No principal or accessory buildings would be developed on the site. Vehicular access to Cannon Avenue would be prohibited. It provides an 8-foot planting strip and a 6-foot sidewalk along Cannon Drive, and provides a 75-foot Class B buffer along the western boundary of the site. That's roughly 3/4 of the property. The property is about 100 feet wide, so 75 feet of that would be buffer, and then the rest would be allowed to be developed for parking. Staff recommends approval of the petition upon the resolution of the technical revisions related to transportation. It is inconsistent with 2040 policy map recommendation for neighborhood 1. But the uses proposed by this petition, though not consistent with the policy map recommendation, would offer a better transition from the surrounding uses to the existing single-family properties adjacent to the site. It would contribute to the goals of the comprehensive plan to mitigate the condition of industrial uses adjacent to residential uses. Offers to provide sensitivity to adjacent sites by proposing a 75-foot Class B buffer along the western boundary of the site. Proposes streetscape improvements along the frontage of Cannon Avenue to include the 8-foot planting strip and 6-foot sidewalk. And it would revise the plan from neighborhood place type to commercial place type for the site. I'll take any questions.
Mr. Carmichael, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council and the zoning committee. I'm John Carmichael here on behalf of the petitioner, Charlotte Truck Center. As Mr. Kinley stated, the site contains about 1.3 acres and located on the south side of Cannon Avenue between Wild Rose Lane and Equipment Drive. There you go. So the site's outlined in green here. This is the petitioner's existing automotive sales and repair facility. They sell trucks, but not the trailers. They service and sell tractor trailer trucks, but not the trailers. And so they have a very successful business, and they need a little more area for parking. And so this is the zoning map. Excuse me, y'all. It's got a little delay here. I have had bad luck with this thing. Right, so the site zone B2CD, the petitioner's existing business site is zone I1C2 and B2CD. The current site zone, the site subject to petition zone N1B. The request is to rezone that 1.3 acre site to B2CD to accommodate accessory off-street parking that would serve and only serve the adjacent Charlotte Truck Center. Off-street parking could include customer parking, employee parking, and the parking of inventory vehicles. As Mr. Kinley stated, that would be the only permitted use. Principal buildings, accessory structures would not be allowed. I think one of the most important conditions is that a vehicular connection to Cannon Drive would not be permitted, and that was something that was appreciated at the community meeting. This is our rezoning plan. This is the site here, a 75-foot buffer that could be reduced to 56 feet with the installation of a fence would be located along the western boundary line. Once again, no access to Cannon Drive. The site could only be accessed from the petitioner's adjacent site. We have one outstanding issue. It's a labeling issue, which we will address this week and get the plan back in, but we appreciate your consideration. We're happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you for that feedback from the meeting with the community. Were there any other concerns that were born out of that community meeting?
It was a very positive meeting, Councilmember Anderson. I can read you, I've got the bullet points here. It was not, we had actually 2 community meetings because there was another site that we were currently pursuing, but we've since dropped it. But one attendee commented that he's concerned that the homeless could potentially set up in the buffer area, but a fence would prevent that. But we had several positive comments that they support the project because it'll improve the neighborhood. One attendee said the project sounds good for the neighborhood. I was asked, how would this impact property values? I said I really didn't know, but I didn't think it would be an issue, particularly since there's not any connection to Cannon Drive. And then that was really, really it. And then there was another comment about having a fence. So that was really, it was a very well-received petition, I think.
Thank you for that update. So effectively, it's bringing the zoning of the existing business in alignment with this parcel that we have here, and there will be no access to Cannon Drive.
That's a condition of the plan, yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I was in the back listening, and I ran out because
All right.
tractor trailer parking has been a huge issue that I've taken the lead on.
Right.
So is this open to the public?
This is a private business. It's basically a car dealership, except they sell tractor trailers, trucks,
They don't sell the trailer, they sell the trucks. Now, somebody could come in and they could put their trailer there, and then you fix the truck, and then they would leave. But this is not open to the public for the parking of trailers.
Okay.
And the only permitted use under this plan, Councilmember Johnson, is accessory parking to serve the adjacent user.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. I know we're still working with city staff on solutions for that, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Move to close.
Second. The motion has been made, probably second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor to close public hearing, please raise your hand. Any opposed, raise your hand. Seeing none, that's unanimous. We will move on to item number 68, rezoning petition 2023-022 by Charter Properties, Inc., located on approximately 14.46 acres on the west, located west of North Tryon Street, east of Moorhead Road, and north of Floyd Smith Office Park Drive in Council District 4, Ms. Johnson's district. The current zoning is N1A, Neighborhood 1A, and the proposed zoning is R8 MFCD multifamily residential conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation and site and building design. There is no opposition, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 3 minutes.
Evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Petition 2023-022 is located west of North Tryon Street, east of East Moorhead Street, and north of Floyd Smith Office Park Drive. The site is approximately 14.46 acres in size and is currently vacant. The site is currently zoned N1A, Neighborhood 1 zoning district. The proposed zoning district is R8 MFCD, multifamily residential conditional. The 2040 policy map recommends Neighborhood 1 place type for the site. The R8 MF district is inconsistent with the Neighborhood 1 place type. However, the petition would diversify housing options along the North Tryon corridor, and the site is adjacent to approved multifamily residential to the west. Site constraints exist due to the narrow width of the site, utility rights-of-way, and stream buffers. The petition would improve pedestrian and bicycle mobility along both Moorhead Road and North Tryon Street by implementing 8-foot planting strip and 12-foot multi-use path. The proposal calls for the development of up to 70 single-family attached residential dwelling units. Proposes 2 development areas that will not be connected on the Mecklenburg County side, due to a stream buffer, though they will be connected to an adjacent development on the Cabarrus County side of the line. Establishes 30-foot setback on Moorhead Road and North Tryon Street with a 50-foot right-of-way dedication from the center line of Moorhead Road, 8-foot planting strip and 12-foot multi-use path on both sides. Commits to architectural standards including pitched roofs, covered porches, and stoops. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation, site, and building design. Approval of this petition would revise the policy map to the Neighborhood 2 place type. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grant. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of the zoning committee. Bridget Grant, land use consultant with Moore & Van Allen. I'm pleased to be here this evening with John Porter with Charter Properties and Nick Bouchon with DRG. Max did a great job on the presentation, so I'm just going to touch on a few points. When you're looking at this site, as you mentioned, it's R3, it's N1A zoning right on the Cabarrus County line. It's important to note that the Speedway is also right up there in the corner. So the corridor in this area is very much transitioning to non-residential uses. So while it is an N1 place type, you can see that there are commercial place types next to it. And the Cabarrus County side is anticipated to have a mixed-use development with residential and commercial features. So you can see how this site, I'll go to the color version, it's always easier. You can see how this site plays into, again, a larger mixed-use community. It will have townhomes on the Mecklenburg County side within Charlotte. On the Cabarrus County side and in Harrisburg, we anticipate there being additional apartments, townhomes, and the commercial uses. This portion of the site is only seeking the 70 townhomes, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Driggs.
I have a question for staff.
Yes, sir.
Is this your first time presenting to us?
This is my first time.
So I
Hopefully,
just
I'm
wanted to
not
welcome
too
you
bad.
to the Lion's Den. I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to close?
Second. There's been a motion, it's been properly seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion of that motion? Hearing none. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Seeing none, that's unanimous. We will move on to item number 69, rezoning petition 2023-027 by 401 South College Street, NC LLC, located on approximately 2.73 acres, bound by the south side of South College Street, west side of East Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, north side of South Brevard Street, and the east side of East Brooklyn Village Avenue. In Council District 1, Ms. Anderson's district. That was like a Dr. Seuss passage. The current zoning is UC Uptown Core, and the proposed zoning is UMUD O Uptown Mixed Use Development with an option. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation and requested technical revisions. There are no speakers against, so Ms. Grant, after staff's presentation, you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. This site is a little under 3 acres at the intersection of South College and East Martin Luther King Boulevard. As you can see in this next image, it is in the heart of Uptown. It shares boundaries with the Charlotte Convention Center and is also right along the blue line of the light rail. The current zoning is UC, which was automatically translated from UMUD on June 1st, and is proposing to go to UMUD optional. That UMUD optional request is consistent with the Regional Activity Center place type, and the proposal itself, really the intent is to allow for some optional provisions to create some flexibility in the site's design and allow the site to develop under one zoning district rather than going by right and contending with the UDO as well as the old ordinance under various phases. So the request itself is for a couple of optional provisions as mentioned, which includes allowing maneuvering in the setback for the purpose of valet services, allowing a 50% reduction in the required number of loading docks, allowing the site to not adhere to street wall provision standards as further specified in those notes, and allowing the urban open space requirements to be met anywhere within the site. And that would be accomplished through that shared urban open space with the Charlotte Convention Center, which they will improve and amenitize further. It also commits to construct a portion of the rail trail that is contingent upon the Convention Center removing utility boxes from the corridor and the Convention Center constructing the portion of the rail trail from the Convention Center to the existing terminus at Brooklyn Village Avenue. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. It improves the existing open space in that courtyard that we have on the site, but it also allows for some significant pedscape improvements that would further the 2040 comprehensive plan connectivity goals through that rail trail amenity commitment that's specified on the plan. And there are a couple of outstanding issues as it relates mostly to transportation, which the petitioner team is actively working through with CDOT. We actually have a meeting scheduled with them tomorrow, so we hope to have a revised site plan that is in pretty good shape in regards to those outstanding issues that you saw listed on the staff analysis. And I'll take any questions after the petitioner's PowerPoint.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of the zoning committee. Bridget Grant, land use consultant with Moore & Van Allen. Pleased to be here with Alex Hay and Max Cooks, as well as Tom Murray with the Convention Center. Holly did a great job describing the purpose and the intent of the rezoning. It really just comes down to the fact that this development is going to probably occur in 3 phases, and so this allows us the ability to work under one ordinance rather than transition from the old ordinance to the new UDO. It also gives us the ability to really enhance that common open space that's currently adjacent to the Convention Center, to have that open space serve the Convention Center, but also the next 3 phases that we anticipate on this site. Happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And thank you, Bridget, for that update. I think this will be a great expansion to the pedscape and mobility as it relates to the Convention Center. So happy to see that. I just have a tangential question. I know several months ago, I see Tom here, we had a conversation around potentially having the rail trail go through, at least a portion of it, the actual Convention Center. And I believe at that time, there were questions and concerns from the hospitality community as it relates to liability and having so much traffic in and around the Convention Center. Are there any updates on that, or is that position still stand firm as it did several months ago? And I would like to invite Tom to answer the question, if that's possible, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Doesn't he have to sign up to speak? He can't.
Sign up to speak.
Yeah, he's not signed up to speak.
He
so
got to be
he can't.
signed up.
I don't think it's a land use.
Ms. Hagel, agree?
I
That's
can
fine,
answer the
Bridget, if you
question.
don't- can you
There's
answer?
no current change, but they are constantly evaluating that's moving forward.
Okay.
Currently, no change.
Great. It would just be great to have an update as we move forward of any modifications around that, but happy to see what's going on outside the building. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Motion to close.
Second.
Ms. Mayfield.
I'll reach out to you and ask some questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I was just noting because I thought my colleague had a question, so I was just trying to catch your attention.
Thank
There's been a motion that's been made and properly seconded.
Mr. Graham?
Mr. Graham?
No question, but other than that, we're going to hear from Tom before he leaves in December, so we want you back, Tom.
The motion that's been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion of that motion? Hearing none. All in favor? Please raise your hand. Any opposed? Raise your hand. Seeing none, that's unanimous. We'll move on to item number 70. Rezoning petition 2023-029 by MAGLC LLC, located on approximately 16.65 acres on the east side of North Lake Center Parkway, south of Interstate 85 and west of Interstate 77 in the ETJ County Commission District 3, Ms. Powell's district, closest to City Council District 4, Ms. Johnson's district. The current zoning is B2 General Business Conditional, and the proposed zoning is B2CD General Business Conditional with the site plan amendment. Staff recommends approval of this petition. There are no speakers against this. So after staff's presentation, Mr. Carmichael, you have 3 minutes.
All right, petition 2023-029 is located on the east side of North Lake Center Parkway, south of Interstate 45 and west of I-77. The site is approximately 16.65 acres, as mentioned, and is currently vacant. The site is currently zoned B2CD, General Business Conditional. Proposed zoning is B2CD SPA, General Business Conditional Site Plan Amendment. The 2040 policy map recommends commercial place type for this site. The B2 district is consistent with the commercial place type. Petition proposes to amend a previously approved petition 2022-010, and that was approved in October 2022. Proposes an increase to the maximum floor area and minor modifications to development envelopes, retains previously approved automotive sales, repair, and rental uses. The site is bound by the south side of I-45, North Lake Center Parkway, and located west of I-77. The neighboring existing and planned uses make the site appropriate location for an auto-centric commercial business, as it's fairly removed from pedestrian-oriented environments. Proposal calls for increasing gross maximum floor area, minor modifications to the approved development envelopes, and corrects labeling mistakes from previous rezonings regarding setback along 45 and buffer widths. There are no outstanding issues. Staff recommends approval of this petition. I can take any questions.
Mr. Carmichael, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, members of council and the zoning committee. I'm John Carmichael on behalf of the petitioner. With me tonight are Jeff Kropp of the petitioner and Nick Bishon of Design Resource Group. I'll be really brief. Max did a great job going through everything. The purpose of the request is to increase the allowed square footage from 78,000 square feet to 110,000 square feet for this automotive sales and repair facility, a Class A facility, and the modifications to the site plan are really just enlarging the building envelopes to allow the increase in the square footage. Everything else remains the same, but we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So we know all of our decisions have impact, but this is one of those, this decision and this petition that I'm really excited about and the impact that it's going to have on the North Lake Mall area. For those of you who are new or don't recall, this is a luxury car dealership. Is it Porsche and Maserati? I think it's Porsche and Maserati. It's minority owned. I'm excited about it. This is some intentionality around North Lake. When we talk about helping to sustain that area and bringing in consumers at a higher wage area. You all know we're also building multifamily around North Lake, so I'm excited about this. And it's good to see you again, Jeff, and I look forward to supporting. Motion to close.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please raise your hand. All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing none, that's unanimous. We'll move on to item number 71, rezoning petition 2023-049 by Wells Fargo Bank, located on approximately 30 acres along the north side of Vance Davis Drive and west side of Old Statesville Road, south of Interstate 485 and Council District 4, Ms. Johnson's district. The current zoning is office and the proposed zoning is manufacturing and logistics 1. Staff recommends approval of this petition. We have no speakers against this, so after staff's presentation, Mr. Fox, you will have 3 minutes.
Okay, this is approximately 30.1 acres on the north side of Vance Davis Drive, west side of Old Statesville Road, and south of Interstate 485. The pond basically to the west was just recently rezoned. I think it was maybe last month. We had a public hearing for that, for basically a similar proposal. If you go on to the zoning slide, please. It's currently OFC zoning. The request is for ML1 manufacturing and logistics. The 2040 policy map calls for manufacturing and logistics. Staff recommends approval. It's a conventional petition, and it would allow all the uses permitted under the manufacturing and logistics zoning district, and it's consistent with the policy map. I'll take any questions after Mr. Fox's presentation.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of the zoning committee and staff, thank you for the opportunity to be here on behalf of Wells Fargo this evening. This is a conventional rezoning request. It is very similar, if not identical, to the request of the abutting property owner that you made a decision on this evening, reference to item number 22 on your agenda. This is really to align the property with, which was formerly a business park designation, and then under your UDO change, converted to an office designation, and now the desire is to take it to an ML1 designation consistent with your prior action tonight. So I hope for favorable consideration of this request. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Ms. Mayfield.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And this is really just for staff. It would be helpful if, when we have it noted that this can, the petition proposes all uses permitted by right under the prescribed conditions of ML1. Can we have those somewhere? Like, again, and I legislate to give the parameter of what it is, because we've had a couple in the night that they fit under this umbrella. But we started, there were a couple of times where we had listing, here are the things that could go there, or we'll list what can't go there. That would be helpful as we're having these conversations, since this is a conventional rezoning. We're not asking specifically what it is, but it would be nice to know what it could be, if we can have that available, and if not available on our legislate, available in print for Monday, that would be very helpful. So, thank you. Mr. Fox, not a question for you, just clarification for staff, so move to close the hearing. Second.
Motion is made and probably second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Seeing none, that's unanimous. We will move on to the final item of the night, item number 72. Rezoning petition 2023-050 by Mudassar Mohammed, located on approximately .219. It sounds like exactly .219 acres on the east side of Donna Avenue, south of, and words matter, right? South of Atmore Street and north of the plaza in Council District 1, Ms. Anderson's district. The current zoning is ML1 Manufacturing and Logistics 1, and the proposed zoning is Neighborhood 1D. Staff recommends approval of this petition. There are no speakers against, and I have no speakers for, so after staff's presentation, it's up to council. Thank you.
Thank you. This parcel is located on the east side of Donna Avenue, south of Atmore Street, north of the plaza. And I'll note, and you can, non-residential uses just to the west of it, north, directly north and south of the site are single-family existing residential uses. So the existing zoning is ML1, but again, that doesn't necessarily reflect the development that we already see on the east side of Donna Avenue. You see those two other houses that are also in the ML1 zoning district just to the south of it. The site automatically translated to ML1 from the I1 zoning district on June 1st. The majority of this neighborhood is already zoned N1C, neighborhood 1C, and is proposing to go for this lot to N1D. I'll just point out that the neighborhood 1C and the neighborhood 1D zoning districts allow the same residential uses. Really, the only differences that you're looking at for those two districts are as it relates to lot dimension standards. So N1D could be applied to a slightly smaller lot than N1C, for example, but the uses would be extremely compatible. And the adopted place type for this site is neighborhood 1, so it is consistent with the adopted place type here in the 2040 plan. There are no outstanding issues. It is a conventional petition, so there's no associated site plan, but I'll be happy to take any questions.
Ms. Mayfield.
If we can go back in the slides, I'm looking for what we were set, and on the west of the site, that car park lot that's directly in front of the residential homes, where is this site in proximity to that?
So it's just to the east of, are you talking about the industrial uses that are just to the west, on the west side of Donna Avenue?
So I'm just going by the picture you have on what's uploaded. It says to the west of the site is a car park lot. So we have some residential homes, and directly across the street from that residential is, looks like older used car lot. Where is that?
Yeah, it's just on the west side of Donna Avenue there.
You don't have a clicker?
Oh, yeah, I guess I do. Sorry. Let's see if I use this correctly. Right there.
Between the ML2.
So that's where, so that's
Yeah, and it's in
across
the
street.
ML1, ML2 zoning district. There are already houses here on the east side of Donna Avenue, and again, we do have existing residential development all along the east side. It's really just along the west side that you see some non-residential uses in this little block here.
Okay, thank you. Move to close.
Second.
Motion is made and properly second. Any discussion of that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Seeing none, that's unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
Accepted, that's been second. Any opposed? Any, all in favor of closing it? Thank you all very much.
We should do that in two-part harmony.